Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. Presented by Carolina Lightweights. Come drip with us. When the action begins in the studio, our referees for tonight's event are Elgato Azul and Carolina Real Streamers. For the slime lovers in attendance and YouTube and Facebook users from around the world, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from the Elgato Azul TV studio in Louisville, Texas, it's time! What's up, slime lovers? I'm Chris, a.k.a. Elgato Azul. It's my partner in slime down here, Jamie Dunn. We got Ian Tipton over here, the slime booger. Down here, we got JTC, Jeremy's Tournament Cats, a couple of our Carolina Lightweights teammates. Jeremy's one of my Demon Dragon teammates. He's now a teammate with me over at Minotaur Hooks, our partner at Carolina Lightweights. So, welcome to the show, boys.
What's up, man?
Welcome, everybody.
How's it going, everybody?
I'm doing great. It's 105, so I'm just thankful I got an air conditioner.
You're hiding inside, ain't you?
Oh man.
I feel you, brother. I feel you. I
Yep.
think I've done lost 10 pounds.
You never get used to this Texas heat, no matter how long you're here. So, but we got our teammates here tonight. It's going to be a good show. We're just going to wing it like we always do. We'll take a lot of questions from the audience. We're going to talk with Ian about flathead fishing. He fishes out of the Ohio River area and some of the backwaters and creeks, smaller tributaries that feed that. We got JTC. He fishes out of South Carolina, and I believe Santee Cooper is his home body of water. You fish all over, though, don't you, JTC?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But, yeah, Santee's the one.
So, before we get into the thick of it, let's see who is here with us tonight. We've got Micah Burkhart, the King of Tennessee's in the house. Chris Vitale, one of my local catfish buddies. We got Gene Fabian, another one of my local boys. Welcome in, guys. We got Brad Ramsey, another local guy. Texas is strong in here tonight. We got Avid Fisherman. Welcome in, Avid. We got Anglerholics, another one of our Carolina Lightweights teammates. That's Jesse Campbell. Wabash Nate. Welcome in. We got Operation Vets with Nets, another one of our partners. That's Rich Cigara. Rebecca and Jamie, don't know who they are, but thanks for coming in. We got Still In You. Welcome, buddy. Facebook user, we can't see who you are, but if you'll log in over on either Elgato Azul TV on YouTube or Carolina Real Screamers. Y'all hadn't changed the name yet, have you, Jamie?
No, not yet.
Carolina Real Screamers over on YouTube. We can see who you are. If not, that's fine too. Let's see. Believe that we got Cat Daddy King. Welcome in, KDK. Monster Cat Mafia. I believe that's Thomas Esslinger. Welcome in, buddy. We got the one and only Becca Mudtramp, another Texas gal, although I think she's leaving. So,
yeah, she's moving to Arkansas or already moved to Arkansas.
Yeah, I saw she had a pretty cool place. She'd moved to Arkansas. So,
yeah,
congratulations. You're going to miss Texas, though. We got another one of our teammates, Milton Netto, with Extreme Trophy Fishing. Welcome in, buddy. He's got a YouTube channel he's got going pretty good. He catches monster gar. I believe that's Extreme Trophy Fishing might be the name of his. We got Big Mike. We're going to have Big Mike on, I believe, probably end of August. We're going to do a bank angling show. And I invited Big Mike because he's probably one of the best bank anglers that I've ever come across for big blues. We got Evan Warden. We got Robert Linton, another one of our Carolina Lightweights teammates. What's up? We got Donate Live Catfish, another Carolina Lightweights guy. and 351 Cleveland. And I believe that is it. So appreciate everybody stopping in, spending a little time with us. We're Carolina Lake Weights heavy tonight. Looks like we already lost JTC.
Looks like he's playing Houdini already.
We got Maniac Mark, New Jersey Maniac, Fishing Maniac, and we got Quiet Man Curtis. Welcome in, guys.
Man, we got a heck of a crowd, guys.
What's going on there, everybody?
Hey, Chris, if you hear me, I can't hear you, buddy.
Yeah.
Chris, we've already lost you, Chris. But guys, while he's going back out, coming back in, we welcome everybody to the show. Looks like we got a heck of a crowd. We're gonna have a lot of fun tonight. We're gonna talk a lot of fishing. Chris,
Y'all hear me now?
I got you, buddy.
All right, well, I'm back. So we've got our Carolina Lake Weights boys in the house tonight. We'll start it off with Ian. He's a big-time flathead angler. Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself, your home fishing waters, and kind of what you've been up to.
Well, mostly right now I fish the Ohio River and where it meets West Virginia waters. That's the closest pool to me. The Gallipolis pool. It's a pretty long pool, and the Kanawha River spills into it also. So I've got several miles of two rivers to fish and several different boat ramps in that area. So that's why I fish there quite a bit. Plus the fishing is pretty good there. But I grew up fishing a small river called the Scioto River. It's a kind of a shallow river. If you find a 20-foot hole, you're lucky. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth and learned how to catch flatheads, because when I started out doing it, we didn't have YouTube or anything like that. We had to just go fish for them. And I knew they were in there. So, and my dad took me there quite a bit when I was a little kid, but we used night crawlers, liver, hot dogs, whatever you could.
Old school. Probably either a treble hook or a kale hook too, I bet.
Yeah, exactly.
That brings back some memories.
When he grew up fishing, they had a fishing cabin that was on the Salt Creek, and the Salt Creek spills into the Scioto right there. And he always told me stories about this giant flathead they caught on a jig pole, which is basically a limb line that you cut a sapling, shove it in the ground. And what happened, they had baited that jig pole with groundhog guts. They would shoot groundhogs and use their guts and bait their lines, because they was mostly catching turtles. And they caught a little 4-pound channel cat, and that big flathead ate that channel cat. And when it did, she kind of fanned out and got stuck in his gills. And it was a 57 or 58-pound flathead they caught back in the 60s. And I always heard that story, and he's like, there's big fish like that in here. And I was like, well, I want to know how to catch these fish.
Yeah.
And then I remember Dad was telling me about how good of a muskie creek that was. It's one of the top 10 muskie creeks in the United States. So I was like, well, how do I catch these? And he's like, well, they'll eat shiners and live bait. So I took my fishing pole, and I went down and caught a bunch of shiners out of the creek. And we went to Salt Creek, and I was going to catch a muskie, or try to. And I'll be darned if I didn't catch about a 13-pound flathead. And when I seen that fish come to the top of the water, I thought it was probably 40 or 50 pounds. You know, I was only 13.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, they eat shiners, you know. So I figured one part out right there when I was 13, and that's what started it all for me.
That's awesome, man. I think a lot of guys probably kind of got, guys that are similar age to us. JTC, I think, maybe a little bit younger than the rest of us here, but all of us are pushing 50. JTC, just looking at him, he's a baby. I wish I was JTC's age. God, I'd give my left pinky.
I'm still in my prime.
you're in your prime, fishing prime.
I'm getting younger every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to the doctor every other day now, though.
That's it.
So,
That's for
JTC,
sure.
tell us a little bit of your background, how you got started, kind of, where you're fishing, where you've been fishing, stuff like that.
All right. So yeah, I fish on Santee Cooper most of the time. We'll go fishing the Cooper River every now and then, and that it connects to Santee. It's all somewhat connected. I've been doing YouTube for what, I don't know, it's about 2 years now.
Yeah, we're
we,
on a similar path, and you actually got me started in the live streaming. So
yeah, man, yeah, dude.
I appreciate it. You found me, and you're like, "Hey, man, I see you catching these fish. You come do some live streaming." So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's how me and Jeremy got connected. I don't know how the hell he found me. I probably had 30 subscribers at the time.
Yeah.
And then we just became friends, and
Yeah.
now we've been teammates. I think it's cool. It was like we were meant to be friends and teammates.
That's right, man. But I fish on Santee. I do a lot of tournament fishing, stuff like that. We've had 3 pretty good seasons out there. Fishing tournaments and everything. Some people don't like them. Some people do like the tournament, but we like fishing them.
Y'all seem to do pretty good. You seem to always finish somewhere up there, right in the running, almost in the money or in the money or one out the money.
Yeah, we've missed being in the money multiple. I mean, it's unbelievable amount of times. One spot out of it, it's unbelievable. I mean, I'd be rich if we could just get into it. So.
Well, my friend, I got to give you props on this past year in Santee, man. What was it? Third place in points this year?
Yeah.
Congratulations. And I'm going to tell you, y'all beat out some very good teams because I fish against them, and these guys are good. And y'all boys really kicked it this year, brother.
Yeah, man. It's extremely competitive out there. There's a couple, 4 or 5 teams that are extremely consistent that, because it's like a point system for most of the tournaments, and if you slip up once or twice, man, it'll put you're not catching up, and luckily this year, man, we were able to stay up there pretty much we were in the top 3 or 4 all season. We had one bad tournament in February, but it won't happen again this year. We'll fix that. But yeah, we caught first night tournament last year. We actually my daughter was born the day before, and my wife, I say, hey, we have a tournament. I have to go fish, and I ended up catching big fish that night. Caught a 54-pound, I think, and it lasted for the big fish of the year for a while, and it was surprising me because there's a lot of more big fish caught, but I ended up getting like 3rd for that. But yeah, man, I just fished Santee, and y'all have seen some of the fish we've caught. I caught the 64-pound flathead in the monster hunt. Year before, I caught a 1 over 70, one close to 60, double up earlier back in December, I think it was, out on a medium light rod. Extremely good fight. Me and my buddy last summer too went out and we caught over 500 pounds of flathead on one trip out. All the fish we caught one fish about a 12-pounder. Every other fish, I think we had 3 over 50, like 4 in the mid 40s, a 40, and a couple in the mid 30s. 10 fish, deep water in the summertime. And a lot of people like to go shallow, in the summertime. But I've learned the last year and a half, 2 years that a lot of them bigger fish like to just to hold to them deep ledges, deep. They just eat. They'll come. They're funny, man, because you'll go up shallow on a flat and you'll catch 50 fish, like 25 fish, and then you'll go out there 5-6 trips in a row. You won't catch nothing but gar. But them fish will run up there and go crazy for one night. In my opinion, it's a one-night deal, and they dip right back.
Do y'all? They like to use those ledges to ambush. It's not just a night thing. I've been doing it long enough to know when the ledge is the sweet spot. So, hitting and usually it's a certain part of the ledge. If there's a little bump on it, or if there's like a secondary piece of structure that's oriented to it, like just a stump that's not really anywhere else but on that little certain section, you're like, oh, look at that stump. I bet we nail one here, and then bang, you nail one. Or like where that ledge drops off right next to the channel or something like that seems to be.
Yeah, it's real good. Perfect spots, man. And I hooked up I got a Humminbird Solix 15. I got it hooked up, back in, and I'm just still I'm pretty much used to it, but I'm still there's a lot to work with that thing.
You got a Solix? Those are nice.
Yeah,
they're difficult to figure out if you've not messed with the touchscreen. Well, I'm a Helix guy for last 8 years.
The sensitivity thing and seeing what's popping up in your water, because your water is different. And if you go to another, set of water, the clarity, different things. I mean,
even on the same fishery, Jeremy, you go one section of the lake that has a soft, silted bottom, and then you move up into a section that's got a hard bottom with rocks. If you're not capable of making the adjustments on your graph, you'll have a washout. You won't be able to see fish.
You gotta. They won't pop. That's what. See, I had HDS live or what. I didn't have the live setup, but I had that for the longest, and I got where I was right on point with that thing. I was like, hey, when we see something, bam, we anchor up or whatever, bam, we're catching those fish. 9 out of 10 times we're catching them. And then the Solix, it's just a little, it don't lie though. If you're gonna buy something. If you end up getting a Solix or even a Helix too, I like the Solix. Well, the Helix has mega imaging too.
Yeah, it's all the same. The only difference is just basically the interface. So one's touchscreen, the other one's not. Cookies Outdoors says should make this Facebook Live public. It is public. You're probably in Elgato Azul TV. You can go over to Carolina Lake Wait's Facebook group or on my personal page, and it's shareable. So share it out or share out either mine or Jamie's channel. It's broadcasting in like 6 different places. So we're just trying to make it easy for people to find.
And Jeremy, you was that the first time you were introduced to that was when you were fishing with me, or what?
Talking about the Solix?
Yeah, the Solix.
Yeah, man, because dude, it you know how it is, bro. We don't often always go on other people's boats. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or they won't want you to come on their boat. Especially the tournament people I talk to a lot of people. You know how everybody is. But yeah. So I was able to go on Jamie's boat and see the Solix multiple times. Play with it a little bit and all that stuff, man. And it made.
So what size screens are you boys running? Because that makes a huge.
I got
probably one of the most important things in my mind.
Yeah, I got a 15. It's a monster.
15. You could definitely see the fish. And what I think is cool is when if you're able to put, let's say like that, if you're able to use that really high frequency and you're up shallow and you mark a fish and he's up over 40 pounds, you can literally see the whiskers on that damn fish.
100%.
It's crazy how good that Humminbird can graph.
Tell them about that fish we saw in the river that day.
We were actually, myself and Jeremy was in the river fishing one day, and we were actually scanning. And there was actually a flathead that we come across, and you could tell it was a flathead.
Yeah.
Perfectly laid out body. I mean, everything. It was just laying there like, just give me the bait, and I'll go ahead and take it. But you knew exactly the time you saw it. And I think, Jeremy, that's where it kind of hooked you. You were like, oh, crap, man. This is like
that's
a picture of the fish.
That's a game changer. And I think, really for fish identification, if you don't have at least a 10-inch monitor, now, if you're really good at them, then because you've caught the fish and you can say, oh, that's catfish. But to really be able to determine what you're looking at, you got to have at least a 10-inch screen. It has everything to do with the amount of pixels. And every time you go up a screen size, you get double or triple the amount of pixels. So moving up from a 9 to a 10, you get double or triple the amount of pixelation. It makes a huge difference. forever, before I got my Helix, I used to think carp were catfish. I didn't know because they all looked the same to me. I didn't really know the difference. And I would fish so many times. I'd fish those damn carp thinking I'm on this school of 20 pounders and wouldn't catch shit. And I was like, damn it. But eventually, when I got that Helix, it all made sense. I was like, I have been fishing these freaking carp damn near every other week for 10 years. Like,
and I tell you, myself and Jeremy, we were up in North Carolina, Lake Tillery, and we were actually running. Jeremy was actually holding his, and we were looking at mine, and we were comparing them, side by side. And his was actually showing a little bit different, stuff that maybe mine was not as tuned in.
Lance, I have a little smaller Lowrance, so when we go out of town, I'll bring that with an extra battery with my other Navionics chip. It shows a little bit different contours than Jamie's, and Jamie's stuff will pop up some little bit different than mine, and it helps out big time while we're just scanning around. We're both looking and not all over the one depth finder. It really, it's nice to.
And I tell you, that night, when we've done that the day before the tournament, it actually put us in some pretty good waters where we knew the fish were holding in certain locations. And actually, we knew what roles that the fish were definitely holding in also. So we knew when you come off of certain areas that might drop real deep, you could actually see the fish lined up there.
You know what? I've had so many guys that come on my boat and they're like, holy shit. Yeah. You just cost me $3,000 because they're like, oh, I just had no idea until I looked at your graph and now I get it. I just got a 12, but to me that 12, when I got the 12 moving up from the 9, it was like, holy smokes, what have I been doing this whole time? I'm fishing the wrong fish. And I really didn't know what I was looking at. I thought I was really good at graphing, but I would say I was not that. I mean, I could go find fish, but I wasn't really sure what I was looking at until I got that Helix 12. And now guys will come with me, and I'm like, that's a 20. That's about a 30 pounder, and he's 52 feet off to the side of the boat. And they're like, I'm like, if it goes down, it's going to go down in the next 2 minutes. And they're like, no way. And then it goes down, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, like, when you're eights, man, you can see stuff pop up if you got your chart speed correct. If you come up, they'll see you like, hey, man, we're running through some fish, and rods, more than times than not, man, them rods are going to go down. You're going to triple up, double up, and it makes the difference. You don't have to spend $4 or $5 grand on a unit, but if you can get you a 9-inch unit, I mean, you still see most everything. You just can't see exactly what you're looking at. Yeah, if you want to go up big,
you're going to still misidentify carp and catfish in the 15-pound range, 20-pound range. Once they get really big, then But
if you
see, I've got a 7, and I can identify carp from catfish because carp are a little bit brighter than the catfish on my.
That's for sure. But not all catfish give the same reading, and depending on how far away from the boat they are, because I'll be honest, we fish a lot of big catfish like to be around the carp, especially if there's gar feeding on them. And guys are like, look at all these gar. We got to leave. I'm like, it's about to be hammer time, boy. And, look at them feeding on all these carp. And I can tell you right now, it's mostly 20 to 40 plus pound fish that like to feed on those, they're adolescent carp. When you see them on the graph, they're really bright. There's a gazillion of them. They're everywhere. And
well, I know I've talked with Jeremy about this, and a lot of people might not, disagree with me. I'm actually excited about maybe going into the live scope. I'm actually looking at some live scope deals right now, and I'm kind of excited because, that's taking it to a whole new level with the live scope. Granted, on our muddy waters, the live scope's not going to work as good as it will in Santee or a lake that's a lot clearer. But I'm actually excited about getting into the live scope part of it also, taking on that whole different look at stuff.
I would love to do that, man. I would, because like now, instead of getting like the what's the one you were talking about, the Garmin?
Yeah, you can get Hummingbird's got one, does the exact same thing
Yeah.
now. So if you're a Hummingbird guy, they got it. It's
I just saw that when I blew last night.
And actually, a lot of my buddies that went with the Garmin that were Hummingbird guys are like, I just didn't like the Garmin, the graph part of it. After I moved from Hummingbird, I just can't wait till Hummingbird comes up with the technology. Well, it didn't take long. Hummingbird has it, same stuff, and they moved back to Hummingbird, and they're like, you just can't beat the bird. Now I know they all kind of do the same thing, but Hummingbird.
Yeah.
You're a Hummingbird guy. You're a Hummingbird guy. I don't know about Ian. What are you?
Yeah, I'm Hummingbird, but I've got a couple of birds. I've got a couple of buddies that have that live scope, man. I'll tell you what, that makes catching bait so much easier, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the depth finder, man. Bait is never an issue if we ever go out to catch it. You just search them days of throwing anchor and just keep trying. Oh no, that's done with.
No.
I've got pretty good at using my side image when I'm scanning for big bait.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, I find the bait, I kind of got an idea where it's going to be in the deeper holes, and then I get my net ready. I'm on the trolling motor. I go through my deep hole or whatever ledge I'm trying to hit them on, because I like to catch my bait that's sitting on something. I don't want it moving around, and it's harder if I can find it on a piece of structure. I think it's much easier to hit with precision, and I'll pull up over it, I'll spot lock, and I'll look at my side image to determine how far out to the side of the boat I need to throw, and usually I can hit exactly what I'm seeing on my graph. So
and with that live scope, I'm kind of excited. I even saw a comment a while ago where when you throw your cast net, just watching it fall.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
That's going to be pretty cool to watch. I mean, it really is. And just like we were talking earlier, I myself, even looking at another depth finder, one brand like me, we were talking earlier with myself and Jeremy, pre-fishing or scouting, different brands offer different things. Myself, I'm a Hummingbird guy, don't get me wrong. A Lowrance, I wouldn't mind having a Lowrance or something so I can compare, that difference and put one game plan together.
Yeah. Anthony Kelly said, what's the biggest bang for the buck fish finders? Ian, what do you think? The biggest bang, if you got to go out and get one and you're not wanting to just, but you want to spend, you're going to have to spend the bucks to get the right graph, but you're not going all out like Jamie and JCC.
If you're only going to run one unit and not have one for your side imaging and one for GPS, you're better off to get Helix G3 or G4 in 10-inch screen that has the GPS already in it, because then you've got everything you need with your unit. That's what I've got on my list.
Always recommend too. I would say the base unit to start out with would be.
But have your GPS. 10. Have your GPS, because that way you can see where you've been, see where you haven't been. You can mark a bunch of waypoints, and it's a hell of a tool.
And
what about you, Jeremy? What would you say would be the base? You wouldn't start with anything less.
I mean, I would say, I had a 7-inch screen for the longest for my Lowrance.
Yeah, but now that you got the 15, you know better.
Yeah, it's crazy. Gotta at least get a 9-inch screen. At least a 9. But I mean, the thing is, the difference, you got mega imaging on a Hummingbird. You do not have mega imaging on the other units.
Yeah.
And when you were looking through stump structure, my Lowrance, very, very accurate, pretty accurate, would show good stuff. But the the mega imaging on the Humminbird, man, it shows everything, you know. So if you're going to spend $2,000 on a unit, $2,400 on a unit, I'd go with a Humminbird.
I think you're going to have the thing for 10 years. You might as well get one. But I mean, now if you're just a guy who goes out and fishes occasionally, you get by with a lesser unit, I think. But if you're going to be out there spending the time like we do, where, I'm out there, if I'm fishing for 8 hours, I'm on that graph for at least 2 of it solid. And I figured you do the hours on that, it's a lot of time looking at a little screen. It's hard on your eyes. It pisses. I mean, it makes for a worse fishing experience when you're sitting here and it's bright, you can't see it, and rather than just glancing over there and looking from back here, I'm like, oh, look at that fish, it's about to go down.
Got the money, it was big as you
go big. Yeah,
with my little 7-inch mega unit, when I'm fishing for shad using my side imaging, I can see my net fall on my graph on the shad.
I can too.
Yeah.
And I see a question, guys. When you run 2 units about interference, myself, from what I've read, from what I've been taught, is it all depends on how you set your transducers up.
Yeah.
On the back of your boat. Depending on myself, I would go to somebody that does it every day, 100%. Yeah. Because, when you're going with 2 big units and you put them on your boat, you got 2 big transducers, you're sometimes going to have that interference no matter what. But it all depends on the placement of that transducer, the height, the lower, all kinds of different stuff.
So I got buddies that are like professional bass anglers. I got buddies that are really big time. I mean, they got so much money in, like my buddy Chris, he's got 2 Apex 15s. Apex 19s. 19-inch Apex. They cost as much as my boat.
I almost got it, dude.
And he's got he's got every most expensive everything you could think of when it comes to electronics on a boat. And you can definitely run them all linked, and without there being any interference. Some of my bass buddies will put a 15-inch screen on the right, a 15 in the middle, and a 15 on the left. On the right, they got the right side image. On the left, they got the left side image. On the middle, they got the lake map and the down image, or 2D, whatever, depending on how deep they are. But you can interface all of it. It just
that's crazy.
I'm a simple old hillbilly. I run one graph.
I got one graph.
But I do want a bigger one. But you have all the graphs you want, man. But if you don't know how to fish,
that's right.
That's it.
The graph is a tool. It's not going to make you. The graph doesn't make the angler. I hear a lot of guys say. I've had guys come into my live stream and we're just hammering big fish. I mean, just one day we brought in like a 60, a 50, 340s within like 5 minutes, and the guy. One of the guys in the live stream said, "Oh, this must be a fish finder channel." And I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. I'm like, fish finder channel? It's like, and somebody said, "Oh, he's a guy that's upset that you use a fish finder to catch fish." Like,
just like said,
what?
You don't have the knowledge of where you're fishing. It's not matter, because just like me. And Rebecca, we're still trying to figure out all the details on some of this stuff, how to use it and all. And Chris, sometimes I have cut it off and gone right back to basics.
I think that, the graph can screw you up. Now, I think if you're a high-level angler, the graph just makes you better. But if you're just a guy who's just a regular angler and you're not great at graphing, the graph will screw you, because you're thinking you got to use this graph to go find these fish, but you don't really know how to find the fish, and it ends up just being like a mind screw,
I wanted to throw the damn thing off the boat sometimes. Rebecca's like, just cut it off, go back to basics, do what we know. And it's actually worked that way for us sometimes. We've actually won a tournament by turning it off and just going right back to basics. So you can, like everybody knows, you can have all of that fancy stuff you want. Granted, I do love what I've got, and it does help. But sometimes going back to basics is just as good too.
I had my unit for a little over a year, and I left it right on my right next to my bed, my 15.
Yeah.
Very confident in my other one, you know, and I was nervous as hell that it was gonna break. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, it's amazing how much battery juice them things draw too.
It's amazing how tough they are, really, to be able to sit out in this Texas sun every day. And mine's 7 years old. It's amazing, and get rained on and just get beat to hell. But
that's it.
You know, I would say out of all the equipment on my boat, that fish finder, when I moved to that Helix, that's what put me on a different level. Now, I was a good angler before, and you got to have all those little tools in your shed to be able to, you know, put a graph, to be able to use it to its full potential. And let's be honest, learning one's like learning a different freaking language.
That's for sure.
It is.
Figure, I mean, it takes years and years and years. And I've been running mine every week. I looked at the hours, and it was like, I'm at like, I run that thing like 1,200 hours a year, and I'm just a weekend angler. So, I mean, 8 years at 1,200 hours. I mean, you're putting in some hours on it. They say to be really an expert at anything, you need to do it for 10,000 hours at a pretty high level. And I believe that's true. And I believe it's probably double that for a graph.
You know, once you get that graph down, though, it's something new is going to come pop out. And I mean, it's always like just leak jumping every 5 to 7 years. You know,
yeah, it progresses so quickly. But I think once they came out with that mega, other than, you know, the live scope, it has not, there hasn't been a huge, like it was before that mega. It hadn't really progressed as fast as it was. It's gotten better. The screens are a little better. You know, the interface is definitely better.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Jeremy, how do y'all feel that in your tournament? I mean, how do you feel that it's helped you or hurt you?
You know, at the beginning of the year, I put it on like a week before our tournament. You know, we went out there the day before, bait and everything, and we went around the area we were looking. It was loaded, and I went back home and I said, "Damn, I think my sensitivity was high." Still caught what?
It was on demo mode. You're like, holy crap, this thing's amazing. Oh, shit, it's on demo mode.
That's why.
You know, just like coming from a river, man, that's what we do. A lot of the muddy water, you know, just like what you fish. How do you feel? Do you use your graph as much, or do you go off the knowledge of the river that you fish that you know?
I use my graph every time I'm out for sure, but I tell you, a tool that I use most, my favorite tool of all, is contour maps. And there's an app called, well, you can't get it now. It was called FishMart. Now it's called One Boat Network. It's from Humminbird. And you can buy it for $25 a year, and it's got the contours of everything in the United States. And that'll help me find my secondary ledges that I like so much. And you can't find structure, of course, but all your secondary ledges, your deep channels, your flats. That way I can plan in my head, well, them fish are going to be on them ledges right now.
Yeah.
I'll go through and I'll pick out an area, you know, a few miles that's got deep ledges. And that's where I'll go anchor or drag and just go from there.
That's it. I mean, you got to know, you know, how to use it and just stick to basics also. I mean, there's a fine line. You can, you know, overthink it a lot of the times and hurt yourself, you know.
I think the biggest difference that I hear from guys that are river guys and lake anglers is I hear a ton of river guys say they are really looking for the structure.
Right.
Then they set up on the structure, and they know that because you're fishing pools. It's not like a lake where you go out on the lake and you're like, all right, this is one giant pool of 50,000 acres. Where do I go from here? When you go to a pool on a river, you've got a smaller area that you can dissect, and you can look at that area and be like, okay, I think if I was a big fish in this little pool, this little spot right here is where I believe I should set up on to have a chance at catching that fish that's in this pool. And I think that's the biggest difference between us lake guys is we actually we use that graph to look. I mean, we're looking at structure too and the lake map and all that, but we're using that graph to look out and see the fish and the bait and all that. And I think that's the biggest difference from all the high level anglers that I've heard are like, yeah, it's not quite like that in the river. I don't really I don't really just look for fish and then fish the fish.
We have another big variable to deal with too. That's current.
Right.
So, so you know, if we've got high current, we know where those fish are going to be. They're going to be up closer to the banks. If it's summertime, like we call the high river down here Lake Ohio, because it gets down to 0.4, 0.3 mile an hour sometimes. And when it's hot, I find those flatheads aren't as structure oriented as they are for the rest of the time of year. They're in that deep water on them flats.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ron.
You know, that's like me, you know, going down to Santee fishing with Jeremy or fishing some of the tournaments down there. Granted, I've got so much to learn, you know, that I have actually learned a lot by going from the river to the lake. And that's like, Jeremy, you know, when you coming from the lake coming to the river, it's a different animal also. And, you know, it can throw you for a loop. But, you know, using that graph on that lake is totally different, like you said. And it's helped out a lot. It really has.
Ian, my buddy Jeff's got a question for you. He says, do you ever fish for flatheads in a lake?
No, I have not. But there are some lakes around where I'm at that have some good flatheads that I plan on trying out sometime soon. Like Hoover, it's up north, and they've been stocking blues for 10 years in Hoover, and they found that the blues in Hoover grow 4 times as fast as they do anywhere else. So the fish they stocked 10 years ago, they're already catching 50s out of Hoover. And a buddy of mine, Dave Funk, that's all he fishes, and he caught 3 fish in June in 1 week that were over 50 flatheads out of that lake. So yeah, there are some good flathead lakes in Ohio.
So, you know, we've had Epic Catfish on, and he fishes lakes for flatheads. And I'll tell you, the way he finds them, Jeff, is he looks for where he believes the structure is going to be. It's usually shallow water, like, you know, 15 feet or less, but it falls off really close to deep water. That's where the bait comes up, and they ambush the bait, and he finds them on the graph. He's looking for them on the graph and then fishes on anchor for them. So
got a helix too, I think. A helix.
Facebook user wants to know, fishing big lakes, would you fish the riverbeds in the lake?
Yeah. Yep.
JTC, I know he fishes the riverbed because I've seen him do it.
Yeah, that's the best.
Anybody that watches me knows I'm in the riverbed probably half the year. Now, they're not always there, but they use them for highways.
In our lake down here, man, it's different from what I hear like other people around, you know, like because I mean around here, man, like when it gets cold, the fish are shallow. You know, I don't know if they do that where you at as much, Chris.
Guys catch them shallow here.
Okay, because
they catch them shallow here. I just fish for them deep.
Yeah, you fish for them deep, and I like to go shallow. I mean, we'll sit.
Yeah, you know,
you'll see it in the water. I mean, we're not in 2 foot of water, throwing back to maybe 4 to 7 foot, and little pitches or whatever. They're coming.
I think that usually the really big, some really really big fish like to stay shallow when it's cold. I believe they like to stay shallow. Those fish are shallow all year. They they don't all act the same. They don't all like the same pattern. Some of them are just fishing a different. They just follow a different pattern than the others. What I fish is what I call the biomass. I'm looking for where 90% of the bait goes. It all, certain times of the year, it all just conglomerates, and especially in the wintertime, I'm trying to fish that around that pile of bait, and the channel usually after a big front, that's where it goes. It goes piles into that channel, and then from there it starts spreading out after 2 days after, 3 days after that front, it starts getting it back out on the flats. So
I saw a question a while ago, Chris. Navionics. Myself, they said, what's our thoughts on Navionics? I love Navionics. I find it very useful. So what's y'all's guys' thoughts on Navionics? I mean, do you find it useful? Do you
Ian,
not?
do you use Navionics
I don't use Navionics, but I use something similar to it. I use an app. You get it on your phone, and it's called One Boat Network, and it's $25 a year. And I can if I wasn't using my phone here, I could pull up. I could go down to Santee Cooper and find ledges, mark waypoints. I could go to the higher river, and
so you study it for a game, especially like and JTC, you do a lot of tournament fishing. Let's say you're going to fish a fishery you've only fished a few times, or maybe never even fished before. I already know the answer. You got to use that damn Navionics before you go.
Yeah, you got to look at it. I'll sit in my chair. I'll bring a battery in the house, or go sit in the boat and sit in the chair and look for it an hour and a half or so, and just constantly look through every creek, everything, just try to find a nook, a cranny, something where, just to see what they might be doing. Something. We at least have some type of idea when we show up at there. We're just not like, oh, where the hell do we go?
Yeah, I know. So do y'all game plan? Do you have a game plan you put together? Like, for me, if I'm travel fishing or tournament fishing, I have to have a game plan, and I'm going to follow it to a T. I know now it starts from where I think I'm going to put in or start, and then I've got a route that I'm going to take in that lake where I think the fish are going to be. I use that Navionics, and I pin all those spots. I'm like, all right, plan A, B, C, D. I'm going to check this section of the river. I'm going to look at this flat next to it. I'm going to check that point. And, there's a little section of trees right here. I'm going to look for that if they're not there. Is that kind of how you do it?
Yeah, pretty much, man. In our lake, man, you really got to play the wind. The wind dictates absolutely everything on our.
Yeah, that's lakes for sure.
It's extremely dangerous out there on our lake. Boats sink all the time. Because when you're coming out of the canal, there's a lot of current in there. When the wind's the opposite direction, it makes some wild stuff at the openings of the canals, and that's where we normally would blast off at. But they let people trailer around and stuff too, so you lose time. But if you can go to a place, and like you're saying, and just hit you a path and run it, that's the way.
I know myself and you, Jeremy, we talk about, and we've done it. We actually set up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, planning through Navionics, going over stuff, planning, hey, what we going to do? What's a good game plan? Because,
let me ask you guys this. Now that you've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years, like me and Ian, Jamie, you've been doing this for 30 some odd years. JTC been doing it most of his life. Now that y'all been doing this your whole life, when y'all are looking at this map and you're game planning, how often, let's be real, how often are they there at your first spot?
Yeah. Is it my lake, or are we going to a new lake? If it's my fish will be there. But if we're going somewhere new, that's when you're gonna get humbled. You go, It takes a very good angler to go to other bodies of water.
I think that's the true testament of really high level angler should be, to me, in my mind, should be able to go anywhere and do well.
I can tell you guys, myself and Jeremy, I'm going to use that Lake Tillery where we fished. I believe we finished 15th out of almost 100 and
150, 100, yeah, 140.
100 some boats. But we had a good game plan. It all changed at 2:00 in the morning. We actually figured out at 2:00 in the morning what worked. And when we did, it just turned on like a light. Yep. So our game plan that we had, the whole thing, we were sticking to it, was not working. 2:00 in the morning, we were actually set in a hole anchored up and said, let's just throw everything out and just totally do something different. And as soon as we did, I believe Jeremy, within the first 15 minutes or in that drift, rod doubled over, hit the water, bam. Here we go.
We had
hey, let me tell you something about catfishing. You show me somebody that says they got it all figured out, and I'll show you a liar.
Hey, aren't all fishermen liars?
Not me.
But seriously, like, we all fish just about every weekend. Take a weekend off here and there to do family stuff, but we all pretty much fish year round every weekend. I know Ian's got cold spell where he can't even fish, but
I fished the winter. Yeah.
We're out there doing it, but out of every trip all year, how many of those do none of the game plans work out? And then I got another question beyond that. So out of all the trips y'all go on every weekend, how many times do you go, holy shit?
Well, that depends. For me, it depends on if I have been fishing, once a week for the last month and kind of have an idea where to fish or what they're on. You know what I mean? If I've been catching them deep, I know I can look on my map and go up to Kanawha, hit these 2 deep holes, probably catch some fish. But that's my home body water. But there's probably 60 miles of river on my home body of water.
Yeah.
With the Ohio and Kanawha, maybe more. I'm not sure how long it is actually. But yeah, that's how we plan every trip.
I know most of the time you do well, but occasionally you suck, just like all anglers. It happens to everybody. But on that day that you're sucking, and you've gone through your A, B, C, D, now we're off into plan E, plan F, and it still hadn't worked.
That's what I'm blaming.
What do you do? Do you blame it and say, I call it a day? I'm going home. It sucked. Or what do you do to try to fix it?
I keep on fishing and trying new stuff. If we've been trying deep ledges, we'll go shallow. We'll keep trying everything until we've pulled every trick out of the book we could for the day. And I'll look at Robert and I'll say, these fish just ain't eating today. That's what it is.
Do you ever do this? Do you ever do this? Because I've started to do this in the last 5 years, and it seems to work on those types of days. Do you ever do this? Do you ever think, where are these fish not? And then go look there.
Jeremy, what do you think?
Have y'all ever come to the mindset and said, nothing I'm doing is working. I am just going to go where I don't think they are. And then you're like, holy shit, here they are.
Here they are.
Yeah.
Happened.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that big catfish will use every inch of that river or that lake at some point. Yeah. I don't care how shallow or how deep or how nasty it looks or if there's nothing there. Them fish are going to be there sometime.
That's it.
At a certain time, yep, exactly. Because I've caught fish on our lake system 2 foot all year long from the bank.
Yeah,
30-pounders, 40s all year long.
This winter we were catching fish in flood conditions, fishing in the woods where the woods is.
It's weird you say that. Here on what we call the Great PD River, the higher the water, the more it's moving, the faster it's moving. Sometimes I do better days in the woods on higher water. I have actually gone fishing when there was no boat landing. You put in, hoping you're putting it in the right area, and done 10 times better.
Now that is one of my favorite times to graph for the fish. in high water conditions when it's flooded, and I know they're along the bank somewhere, and I'll go look for bait and fish, and that when I find them, I'll set up on them, and we just start catching them pretty quick because they're all right there.
All bunched up on the
So
bank.
my buddy Jeff said, how often do you guys, and I know what he's referencing. He's referencing our trip Saturday. How often do you guys think you're going to have a crappy day and actually have a great day of fishing?
I never go out thinking I want to have a crappy day. I always go out thinking I want to have a good.
You don't look at a weather pattern and a situation and say, it's going to suck, but I'm going to go anyway. Because I'll be real. I mean, there's days where I think it's not going to be great. But, you know, some of the worst days where you're not supposed to catch anything, I've actually had some of my greatest days in history have been on those types of days. So I've learned just to go. It's best to just go when you can instead of when you. Now, if you go when you should, your success rate's going to go through the roof. But if you go when you can, your ability to go catch fish on a bad day will go through the roof.
Well, you know me. I work out of town all week, and on the weekends I got Friday, Saturday, and Sundays off. And Fridays are always my days to go catch bait, and then I'll fish Saturday, no matter what it's doing.
And Jeremy, I know down on Santee, you know, you have them days. It's just like this.
Yeah, man. You know, it is. The fishing can be bad at times, you know, and you know, because we'll have tournaments, man, and people won't bring in a lot of weight, you know. And that's a rule of thumb that I've learned the last few years tournament fishing when we've been doing real good. Honestly, each year we've had at least one bad tournament. We kind of bad, you know, but you know, if we're not catching them, there's usually a good chance that 98% of the other boats aren't really catching them. They may come back with 30 pounds, 40 pounds.
Yeah. But Jeremy, what I've noticed, and I know this rings true for anywhere in the country because I've followed a lot of these different tournament scenes, is there are certain guys that can go fish on that day where the other 32 boats did terrible.
Yep.
And they did great. And it's not luck because they do it every freaking tournament they're in. They're doing it.
Yeah. And teams I have to deal with every damn tournament that two of them. And they are, in my opinion, I'd put these two teams that we face all the time in the top 10 in the country. Yeah. You know, they have the Solexes on the boat. They know what they're talking about. They're buddies too. You know what I'm saying? Jamie knows who I'm talking about. Them two boats, and that's the two boats that finished behind. Actually, I beat one this year, and then some other boat came out of nowhere. He kind of came out of nowhere a little bit and got in front of us a little bit, but yeah, man, because one day we had a tough day. Come back with like 40 pounds. Like, dang boy, everybody else saying not catching much. What happened? The other boat come back, had a 104-pounder. Back-to-back years. Same tournament in January, 106, and then a 104-pounder. Something like that. Yeah. Had 200 pounds on 3 fish.
And everybody else is just, you know, going, you know, couldn't find them.
Yeah, what do we do?
But they have that they have found in January, that one specific team that they have going back every year now. They went 3 tournaments in a row in January. They had 150 pounds this last year, and they didn't come back. They come back with a 9-pounder. You know what I'm saying? But they had 150 pounds, man, on 3 fish. I mean, they found something, you know. And I don't ever see them.
Yeah, you don't never see them.
I don't see. You know, I don't normally see many boats anywhere where I, you know, but you know.
But you know, there's one. You know, not to get us off the subject. I saw one question a while ago about burping the fish, you know, which is real important. You know, going back, Chris, if y'all want to answer, you know, how important is, you know, different depths and stuff like that, you know, about burping these fish and taking care of them, man. I saw where we had a question on that a while ago.
So I'll start it off. I have a ton of experience burping these fish. Our fish in the summertime, when we catch them, we don't catch them deep because we have a thermocline. If we're going to catch them, we're usually getting a big fish on top of a ledge. Our thermocline's usually around 20-ish, 22 feet. So we got to fish above that. That means fishing either the tops of humps or flats that are in mid depth or, closer to creek mouths. So when we catch them out of that depth, it is rare we ever have to burp one. They don't need it. They fight stronger. They're able to push that air out of their bladder more. But as wintertime comes along, you will catch a big fish, and sometimes they'll shoot straight to the surface. I'm often in 30 feet or deeper, which I think is now sometimes you got to burp one in less than 30 feet, but I think 30 feet is about that depth where if they shoot straight to the top, their air bladder will expand and you're going to have to burp them. In the winter, on certain days, they'll stay down on the bottom and you won't have to burp them, and they'll come up slow. But most days, you got to burp them, and it is a process. So we catch a ton of big fish in the winter, and most of them we burp.
And I always say, I mean, I keep a tube now. I keep a tube on my boat just for that reason, for burping. Jeremy, how about you, brother?
No, I ain't never really burped no fish. You know what I'm saying? But I just try to bring them up real slow. But normally, I don't fish deep water. Really, you know what I'm saying? So I don't, just like Chris was saying, when they're shallow, they tend to not have to deal with it as much.
Yeah.
And see on the river,
it's super important, though, guys. I will say it's super important if you're going to be catching catfish and you have any plan of fishing in water that's 25 feet or deeper. You definitely need to know what you're doing to burp a catfish, because if you don't, they will die. They will not go back down. They will stress out to the max. They'll lay over on their side. If they do that for more than about an hour, they die.
80% of the time, I'm in 30 foot or deeper. So I guess I would give anybody advice that's going to fish that deep water who hasn't really done much of it, was to just bring your fish in really slow. Don't get in a hurry.
Yeah.
If the fish gets off, so what? Bring it in really slow and watch for the bubbles out there in the water. You'll see bubbles come up, and you know that he's burped. If you haven't seen bubbles, let him dive by the boat for a little bit. Maybe let him burp himself, because I don't like to burp a fish. I feel like I'm violating them.
That's what I do.
A lot of them have to be burped, though, especially in the winter. They just give up. It's not a matter of you horsing them up. You watch me long enough. I don't horse my fish. I like to catch them. I like the part of the fighting them. I'll sit there and just until they're ready. But even if you fish for them like that, our fish in the winter got to be burped. Now, a guy that's not catching them all the time, 100% of them are horsing it up to the top. They just they think, I got to get this thing up before I lose it. But you will actually lose your best fish if you do that, because you're leaving them too powerful when they get next to the boat. If it's not a perfect hook set, they will rip that hook right out of the flesh. So I have learned, not just for the health of the fish, bringing it up slowly, but if he's a really good one, take your time with him, because once they get up there right next to the boat, they'll do some weird tricks. And a lot of times, if it's not really sunk in deep, they can just rip that hook right out. So,
if you don't know how to tell if a fish needs burped or not, feel his belly. If his belly's loose and jiggly, he's fine. If it's real tight like a balloon, he's clear full of air. He needs burped.
Yeah. And just like looking for them bubbles, man. I mean, you're going to see that if you're taking your time and stuff, the fish is pretty well going to do it themselves. I mean, you're going to see them bubbles come up, and good deal. That fish is not hurt. It's going to live for another day. And I just hope everybody takes that time instead of horsing them out in the deep holes. Just take your time and let the fish burp, or you burp it. And just
have fun with it. Have fun with it, because that fish fight is either going to last you 30 seconds or 3 minutes. Or if it's a big fish, it's either going to last you 10 or 12 minutes, or maybe even more, depending. I mean, if it's a giant. But if it's a good 50, 60 pounder, going to last you about 10-minute fight. Why horse it up there? It's over. Like the fish fight's part of the fun, but I do get it. guys that don't get them all the time, they want to get that sucker in the boat, and the faster they can get it up there.
If you're here's another good example. If you're fishing at nighttime, when you release that big fish, keep that spotlight on that water, and especially if you're in current behind that boat, because 2 years ago, me and Robert and my cousin Clayton were out, and my cousin Clayton caught a 40-plus pound flathead. And that fish felt fine, didn't feel like he needed burped. And when we released that fish, Robert put the light behind the boat, and he come up, belly up.
Yeah.
We had to pull in all of our rods, go chase that fish down and catch him, and I had to burp him to let him go.
And Jeremy, I've seen you take your time on some big fish. I mean, I see how you handle it, and the fish, I know is your number one priority. Even me and you, we caught some nice fish together, and just feeling that fish. I mean, I don't care if it takes 30, 40 minutes, man. Just that bite alone, but knowing you're going to be able to release that fish alive.
They should go back down. There shouldn't really be anything that you do to it that really kills it. Guys like, I just couldn't get it to go down. Guys, I've been doing this a long time. They all go back down. Unless you hook, I don't know. I've had a weird hook where it got down into its stomach, and the stomach was I just cut the hook. I mean, I let it have the hook. You're going to do more damage trying to remove that hook. Let him have it. It's been, they've been studied long enough. That hook's going to deteriorate and the fish will be fine. You try to remove that thing, physically, it's going to damage the fish and hurt it. But, the only other thing I've heard that's really would kill one is if you hook a weird hook set in the tongue. They have a ton of blood vessels in that tongue. They can bleed out. But I've hooked them in the tongue. They went back down. I don't know if they lived. How would I know if they lived? They went back down. All I can do is get it to go back down.
Well, with the hooks that we have this day and time, I mean, Jeremy, y'all can answer this too. A lot of times, them hooks is pretty well going to the same place.
It's very rare that the only different bite that we get is we get them through the top tooth patch or through the top of the skull on a day where they do an injury bite where I'm physically trying to hook it and then bringing the rod tip way up to get the fish, or you'll never catch a single one of them. So on a day like that, we do get a different hook up, but I don't believe most guys would even catch that fish unless you really know what the heck's going on. So a lot of guys don't have to worry about that, but most of the time the hook's going to be in the corner of the mouth. Occasionally it's in the bottom. It's rare that you get one that's deep hooked.
That's it. And Jeremy, what all you got coming up, man? What you got going on?
I don't know, man. We got a tournament this weekend. We got our president or our club. He's doing a pickle jar tournament, a nighttime thing. We're gonna do that. A lot of shit talking goes on out there. You know what I'm saying?
So you're gonna pay me Saturday night, right?
No one's gonna get paid. That's for sure. I'm on the water a little bit, So and see, this they have interesting rules for this weekend. So sign up, and then you're gonna pick something out of a hat or something, and they're gonna tell you what lake you got to go fish.
Yeah, it's gonna be a very interesting tournament.
Yeah, so you can go fish Moultrie all day you want, but if they send you to Marion, you gotta go to Marion.
That's it.
That's going to be interesting. I like it. I do like that. I think that's pretty cool right there, So it's going to be something different.
That's it. Jeff is asking, cut bait or live bait for flatheads? When, where, and why, please?
I'm a cut bait. Like the bait's alive when we, cut it up. You know what I'm saying? But I rarely fish with live bait. But I think in our rivers, if we get in the rivers, I think it's a lot better. You know what I'm saying?
You got current that gives a little action. Yeah,
it's good. I like going in the creeks in our little river and and setting up in there. They're not too wide or nothing, man, but you find these little tiny holes in there. They might have 5 or 6 flatheads sitting in them.
That's it. Ian, what you thinking, brother?
I like cut bait better, but that doesn't say that I don't use live bait and have success with it. Now, especially when it's a shad bite and like first part of the year, we like live shad with cut shad. And then when the moon eye come, to me, there's nothing better than a big piece of cut moon eye for a flathead where I fish. That's just like, that's it right there.
And see me, I thought you were going to go live bait. I really did. See,
I did too.
Here, I just love the live bluegill. I mean, even Jeremy can tell you, I'll do some cut bait. I've told Jeremy, man, the cut bait ain't going to work here, the cut bait. And I just have to go to that live brim. And I love it more than anything.
Now, we bring them, and we throw them. But the cut bait almost always outfishes it where we are.
Crazy,
but every once in a while we'll get a big fish on a live. I caught that 60-pounder 2 years ago. It was on a big red ear sunfish coming off spawn. But I think later in the year, around September, I think that's when your live bait, we have better bites with our live bait. When it starts to cool down a little bit, they're starting to feel like, it's time to start eating a little bit more. That's when they seem to chase. But when in the summertime, when they're not real active, they don't seem to be as structure oriented to me. When they're just kind of laying in the mud, cut bait. They don't have to chase it. They just either drop it in front of them or they move really close to get it. They don't have to move very far to get it.
I think it helps our hookup rate. Not having that's my opinion. That's what I feel like. The bait's moving around. You might catch them funny, or whatever. But we caught all them flatheads last year in the live stream, and we on cut bait. Every fish was on cut bait. We dropped a few live baits down there, never got touched.
Let me ask you this, Jeremy. Do you drag for flatheads?
I mean, we're not like targeting them really. Now if we think we're in an area they might be, I guess we are targeting them in a way.
Yeah.
But last year, we caught, I bet 8 to 10, 40+ pound flathead right before our tournament. In September, drifting, everything drifting.
Yeah.
I'm on cut bait, and catching big blue. They're all, they seem like they're all together sometimes.
What kind of area were you dragging?
What?
We wasn't deep. We were up on a flat kind of, like 30, 25, 30 kind of humps, little humps.
Where were you, Jeremy?
Hey, we was over that.
Got you.
I'll drag really slow and catch a lot of flatheads that way. I'm talking 0.2 to 0.4, barely moving.
Yeah, you're not going to catch the flatheads, in my opinion, moving fast. I mean, you might.
No.
But if you can creep almost,
that's how we do it.
Actually, we started doing that here on our river. Also, nobody else is doing it, and I love doing what nobody else is doing. And we actually found out we're getting a lot of bites that way. You're moving that bait over structures. All kinds of stuff. Where if you're anchored, you're actually just fishing that one structure. This way, you're covering more water, and your hookup, as far as the bites and stuff, is actually picked up a lot. We started getting a lot of nice fish that way.
I hear guys talk about moving and covering more water, but I think the benefit of dragging is the presentation. You're presenting your bait as an injured piece of bait fish that's moving over a piece of structure that a fish is using to ambush injured fish. You're giving it exactly what it wants rather than soaking a bait works good too if the fish is moving and coming through to your spot. But if you know where the ambush points are on a run, you're going to catch more fish.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to catch more fish. Now, if there's only one sweet spot on that, you might only have one really good shot at one. But if you're capable of understanding kind of the big fish, how they operate and what they want, you can find in one run 3 or 4 sweet spots, and you got a chance to really do something on a run like that. I think that's the difference between anchoring. Now you can anchor, and when they come through, you catch 3, 4, 5 of them all at the same time. Bang, 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 bang. But if they don't come through, you don't catch any.
Okay. Now, hey, in our last year, we drifted in our first tournament. That was our plan. We're drifting from the get-go. That's what we've been catching the fish. The other 7, 8 tournaments in a row that we fished, we didn't even throw one. We didn't drift one time. We straight anchored every day, all day long, because we knew, hey, there's fish here, and if me and my partner, you just got to be patient.
Yeah,
we're okay with sitting there 2 hours without a bite. We're okay with that. It is in my mind, I'm freaking out, but I know if we can just get that bite, we're okay, And that happened back in January. We had no bites until 11 o'clock, and I was like, bro, I just caught an 80, a 70, a 60, 2 weeks prior. Like, what's going on? So, but we went back to the exact same spot. I caught those fish. We stood there 5 minutes, bam, 51 pounder, which we probably should have been there to begin with. But we went to the other spot where we just, won the tournament, So, what I'm saying? But, and we anchored a bunch, and my partner, his boat, he has like I can't even remember. It's like a flat bottom river boat, but he has power poles on the boat. So we'll just power pole down and just sit, 3, 4, 5 foot of water, and just throw a little bit off a little deeper and stuff like that. And just trying to hit a little bit different drop offs, never ever really go deep until it was summertime. And,
y'all don't have a thermocline there in the summer. You're talking about going deep. I just, on my fishery, it's a freaking dead zone, man. We got a thermocline. It's at 20. I mean, like last week was 26 feet. I fished 23 feet where that band of cool water is between the dead water and the hot water. I fished that.
I don't think we get much of that on the Ohio because it's always still moving. But I wanted to say something about when Jerry was talking about the last thing he was saying. A lot of my biggest flatheads have come off of baits that I have sat there for 2 or 3 hours on that spot and not moved that bait one time.
Yeah, because he's going to move at some point. There's no doubt about it. And I think with drifting a lot of times, it's when you might think the fish are in an area, but you got to cover ground to catch them. That's why like tournament a lot of time, especially you go to new waters, drifting's the way to go. Anchoring, I think. Shooting yourself, you got to get lucky to anchor and start busting them unless you're pre-fishing and they were there. But like none of us really have a week to go out of town before the pre-fish. Not everybody can do all that stuff. So
that kind of
I think a lot of guys when they drag, it's not really a precision game. They're trying to cover water. They don't know where the fish are. They're hoping that they just come across one that's hungry. I mean, that is not my dragging game. I drag with precision. I have an idea where I think the big fish are going to be oriented to ambush, and that's what I'm trying to hit. I'm trying to hit something exact, the tip of a point, the bend in a channel, the ledge that comes right next to the channel, and I'm going to put my bait right in that sweet spot, and it's not a very big area. And, I mean, you could go anchor on it and probably catch that fish. But I feel like when I drag, if I can hit that spot, and then I'm going to go over there and hit that spot, instead of my chance of getting this one at the 40, 50 pound range, now I might catch 3 of them on that same run. So,
and with our tournaments, man, the way me and my partner think is like, we need 3 bites. It's a 3 fish thing, 3 bites. And I feel like a lot of times if we're catching 15 pounders, 20s are good. I mean, this stuff, because you catch 2 40s with a 20, you got 100 pounds, pretty good. You just got,
King of Flatheads said he don't know nothing about flatheads. Please. See, fishermen lie.
Well, let me
Facebook user said, out of the group, who would rather drag or sit?
Hey, Ian, what's your biggest flathead y'all caught up there?
mine's I caught one. I know that was 60 because I've caught them in the 50s, and this one was big, bigger substantially. But I didn't have any scales with me. But several 50s, 40s throughout the years. You know what I mean?
I want to hear a fish story.
But our state.
That was one of the questions. I want to hear the fish story behind some of these. So, Ian, we'll start with you. Let's hear the story of the 60-pound flathead.
Okay, it's a good story. I was fishing with a good buddy of mine named Bean Smith, and the whole trip was kind of cursed from the beginning. We launched the boat, and I forgot to put the plug in. We get out in the middle of the river, the boat starts sinking. So I had to jump in, put the plug in, pump all the water out. And then I couldn't get my fish finder to work. I've lost a wire fried. So I went off of instincts. And this is one of my first times on the Ohio River, second trip on the Ohio River, down there where I fish. And so we took off, and I found this big weed bed. And I'd been there the week before, so I knew it was a secondary ledge. And we fished a few other spots, but we pulled up on there to fish for the rest of the night, out of the way of the barges, just to soak baits for the rest of the night, because I knew there'd be some flatheads coming up in that weed bed to, ambush some prey. Well, my buddy, he was drinking. He got kind of tipsy on me, and our boat was swaying a little bit. Every time the boat would sway and a rod would bend, he'd go for it. And I'd say, Beans, calm down. That's just where the boat's swaying now. Just chill out. So at one point, it was getting pretty late, and I went to bump all the rods in just a foot or two. And one rod was snagged. And I said, well, that's good. That's on some structure. I'll just leave that there. And I had a rod snagged on the other side of the boat. Well, I decided to take a nap, and I told Bean, I said, that rod is snagged, and that rod is snagged. So if the boat sways and those rods bend, don't freak out unless they bend over, start peeling drag, or start bouncing. Yeah, man, I got you. So I fell asleep, and a little bit later, I kind of felt him rustling around. He fell asleep. And I don't know what woke me up, but I woke up from a dead sleep and looked at that rod, and I watched it. It just kept going down slow. And I said, that's a big fish. That rod had been out there snagged for 3 hours with a live red ear sunfish, and that big fish hit.
Jeremy, what tell us what you got, Bubba?
Let me tell you a story about the fish I lost before, right? I don't tell too many people about this because, they think I'm lying. But
No, not you.
I had my little John boat, first boat I ever had, right? Little 12-foot John boat, right? No rod holders on it, nothing like that, right? But we had a little trolling motor, 30 thrust trolling motor. We hook it up, we go out in the river, in the creeks and stuff. And we'd throw the nets, catch shad or whatever. We caught a bunch of big shad, you know what I'm saying? And we went out there and we were throwing just crazy big baits, you know what I'm saying? Just like laughable, stuff back in October. Same time of the year I caught the flathead in Palmetto thing, right? And we sitting out there about 2:00 in the morning, and all of a sudden I had this big rod, and that's something that, boom! I mean, it goes down, son. And we're like, zuh, 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 zuh. Well, my drag was kind of acting up on the rod. Well, luckily, we see this fish. It was low in the river. It couldn't have been more than 14 feet out there. And it came up out of the water, and boom! I was like, we were like, bro, what do we have? And it started reeling, happened to run right in the creek. Right, he came up, then he come back up into the creek. He came up out of the water because it was more than 2.5 foot or so in the creek. Came up like a tarpon, and just like this right here, boom. And Kyle will contest to this too now, and I know on no shit, this fish came right next to the boat. We didn't have a net in the boat too, because Kyle kills me about this, because my older brother was like, hey man, don't be a pussy, just grab the fish, all the time. I said, all right, we're gonna. So for like 2 months we were just grabbing the fish, and because it didn't even have a net, we're just grabbing them. We're like, all right, well, we didn't have no net or whatever that night, and this fish gets up next to the boat, and on everything the fish was probably like a 150 next to the boat. Pops my line, boop, right back out in the river. I was about 18 years, so about 15, 17 years ago or so. something like that. But that was in the Cooper River. It's not a big river, but I've told other people that right there has that little small river has a few fish in there that is big. That's a North American record. You know, they're not caught all the time at all. It's kind of a little bit rare, but you know, they're in there. You know what I'm saying? And I think if you go in the river in October with big baits and you just spend a few nights out there, just all night, just throw baits, anchor up, wait, you have a good shot at getting them, though. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it was the craziest thing, man. Kyle, he's trying to drag the boat on the bank. You know, we're gonna get the fish to the bank. You know, he steps on because we had cinder blocks for our anchors. You know, and he steps on it, breaks his damn leg, man. It was fish. It was something, man. It was just because we're sitting there, no bites, nothing, like no fish, bro. And all of a sudden, boom, and I hook a fish. It was like 10 pounds, and it hit the same bait, a big giant bait, and then threw it right back out there. And 20 minutes later, that fish hit, and I just remember it coming out of the freaking. It was a full moon, came right out, man, just clearly seeing it. And I was like, it was just amazing. And this is my thing: when the manatees show up in the river, the big fish are in the river and they're ready. And that's just me, you know. That's just what, you know.
Yeah.
So Epic says Cooper River has the transitional giants. Seen that in '99. I know he ain't lying, but I don't know what a transitional giant is.
And see, these fish, though, they can go all the way down salt water. They can go way down there. There's so much places to hide in the river. There's a lot of rice fields, a lot of areas that's very hard to get to. The fish current is so strong. You know, a lot of stuff, man. It's really perfect for the fish. It's tough to fish. A lot of grass. You know, you'll have your rod out there 10 minutes. It has 40 pounds of grass on it. You know what I'm saying? You're reeling up. It's a lot of that junk, you know. So,
Brandon Ladd says, boy, October, y'all will see some big flatheads coming in the boat here. Love October, November for flatheads. Hell, those Ladd brothers catch big fish all year. I don't know what he's talking about.
My favorite time of year used to be March, and it still is in a way for daytime flathead fishing and tournaments. But December and night has kind of the last few years have taken off. You know, I've been fortunate on live streams, man. You know, I've caught a lot of really, really big fish on live stream by myself out there too, man. I've been real fortunate to break. Hell,
I know a lot of guys say, yes, the live stream curse, but hell, I damn near hammer them every time I go live.
I tell my partner, I said, let's just hit the live button, bro. Just hit the live button.
Hey, Jeremy, what's your state record flathead down there? Ours is 77 in Ohio and 70 in West Virginia. So we don't really, I mean, I'm sure we do, but no one's really caught the absolute true giant flathead where we are, like the 80s and 90s.
Hell, we had a 98 caught here 3 weeks ago by a freaking noodler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
4 right now. I think we've had multiple people get hit 80s and 79s the last couple of years, but in the river, I think Santee Cooper, the lake has the flathead. I think they're in there.
Yeah, the lake, they're harder to catch. You want to catch that lake record, you need to invite this guy right here fishing.
Oh, it'd be nice, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got to have one thing about catching those big giant lake flatheads. You got to be willing to throw a big enough bait for them to interest them.
Guys in the lakes aren't fishing for them. We're all dragging and anchoring for blue cats.
Yeah, a lot of times.
It's just different when you're fishing for flatheads. To catch them, to be good at them, you got to target them. You can't fish just, I'm going fishing for catfish. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Now, I know some of these guys in the river, y'all catch them dragging and all, but that ain't here. You got to target them and you got to go to where they are. But certain time of year they go on that roam feed and you can catch them out roaming and feeding. But
I don't, in the springtime pre-spawn, I don't do any dragging because that's when I'm trying to catch my big flatheads for the year. That and then like after spawn and then in the fall, that's when I try to catch the bigger flatheads. That's when I've had success catching more success catching the bigger ones anyway. especially in
Our state record for flatheads 114, but there was a 98 caught 3 weeks ago. When I was a kid in 81, I saw a 99 caught that was at the time was the world record out of my lake. But we don't see a lot of big flatheads anymore. Occasionally you'll see one that's super sized, but
yeah. And we've also got the pay lakers just raping our waters like crazy.
Yeah, Texas got them out. So we used to have them coming down from Arkansas in and taking our fish, but they pretty much were able to get them out of there. I don't know if they still do that in Arkansas, but I don't know why they allow that where y'all are at. It is freaking crime, especially when you see that guy posting that runs that pay lake saying, yeah, we killed all the fish, we treated the water, but don't worry, we'll have them all back by next weekend.
Crazy.
Chris, I've been playing around with some saltwater lines for big catfish lately, where the freshwater and saltwater. And
that's a stun zone. They love that.
And myself and Rebecca were able to win a tournament off of that this past year, where we found that some big giant catfish, man, lay up close to that saltwater line. And it actually surprises me how far into the saltwater line there are.
Yeah.
And, man, it holds some big catfish.
Yeah, they like that area in between where they can catch stuff that's lethargic. I think
that's it.
Yeah, we would catch big reds and big blues at the same time, because we used to do a lot of shrimping and in the more saltwater, the Cooper River. But we would catch catfish left and right. No flatheads, but blues galore.
That's it. It's really Jeremy. It's shocking how far like I said, some of the big them big catfish is holding up towards that salt water. I mean, there's a lot of food source that's there. You got your shrimp. You got a lot of those small baits and stuff that hang around there. I mean, there's constantly food source all around that area.
I think some of these tidal rivers, that's why they're so good.
Yeah.
It's that stun zone. They can just feed without having to really work for it. Yeah. They can just go gorge themselves and then leave and then get back out of it when they're done.
That's it.
When they're feeding, they move back in. So for a fisherman, I can go to this brackish area where they're feeding because this is a stun zone. It makes it, it's an easier area to target. I've never fished one. That's just my theory.
Well, Jeremy was talking about the manatees moving up into Cooper River. Here also you got a lot of the dolphin. Miles from salt water, you can see up on the Big PD River, the dolphin coming up into the rivers.
Yeah.
And whenever you see that, I have found some very good fishing. Some of the best fishing times of the year.
They're probably doing the same thing.
That's it. And it's like, man, you sitting there in fresh water, you got dolphin coming up, and it's like, wow, and you're catching big, nice fish. Oh, Lord. That's a whole nother topic, bro. Man. But yeah, that holds some big fish in that area. Yeah, mullet. That's
John Bubba New said he's growing a mullet.
I've seen some pictures lately of John Bubba New. Lord have mercy. But Jeremy, like I said, man, I'm ready for Saturday night, brother. I'm ready to come down. It's gonna be their first trip down here to Santee in a while.
I know, man. I know. That's gonna be good.
Yeah, not knowing where you're gonna fish is gonna be. You don't know. If you're gonna be up on the upper lake, the lower lake, or you're not gonna know where you're gonna fish until you actually get there.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's pretty good. Even playing field for everybody.
Yeah.
Epic says he can't wait. He's just waiting until the Giants come into his area. I need to get a plane ticket up there.
that would be dope, man.
Ben and Tip says he's be heading out Friday night. Missed some big ones last weekend, so headed to the same area. Well, I don't know what you were fishing for, but damn, these fish around here move. I don't believe they'll be in the same area as they were last weekend, but hey, what do I know? Facebook user said he caught a 63-pound tarpon 8 miles up the Trinity River in brackish water.
Wow.
I believe that those tarpon, they like that same type of stuff. They'll get right up in that stun zone and feed. So I see that common where there's a freshwater river feeding into the ocean. That's a tarpon spot.
Myself and Jeremy's actually seen some fish at nighttime fishing coming up out the water. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Shallow water creek.
I don't know what happened to Ian. He fell off. He came back in, but he lost his screen. Now he's gone again.
Man, I tell you what, the time has flew by tonight, man. This has been an excellent show, brother.
Good, man.
It's been a great show. I knew it was going to be good getting Jeremy and Ian both on here.
Yeah, we were able to cover so much topic tonight. It's really been, unbelievable. And from the chat, Chris, it looks like everybody really, enjoyed a lot of the questions we were hopefully able to answer for a lot of the people. And, there's some very good questions out there tonight.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. Oh, and hey, everybody in chat, y'all, if y'all haven't subscribed to Elgato or Carolina Real Screamers channel, it takes 2 minutes to go over and subscribe to their channel and help everybody out, okay?
Yeah, give us a thumbs up. And JTC is Jeremy Tournament Cats.
Yep.
He's been doing a lot of daddy daycare lately, but the dude is constantly catching good fish. He's one of the best anglers I know. He's as consistent as anyone when it comes to catching fish over 50 pounds. To me, that's a testament of the angler. He does it consistently. It's not a luck thing.
And I'm the youngest, man. So, like in like our tournament system, pretty much. I'm the youngest person. My brother's 1 year younger than me. He did his first boat last year, so I mean technically he would be the youngest, but I was the youngest for the longest. Like running my own boat and everything. And a lot of them guys have, almost 20 years on me, if not more, so I know that if I just continue on the path that we're trying to do, learn patterns year in, year out, the patterns usually stay somewhat consistent, maybe change a little bit if it's not as hot or as cold or whatever, you got to take into effect, or count or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But as long as I keep doing that, man, I'll be, because my goal is just to run Santee Cooper and run it every tournament, not lose ever. That's the goal. It's not going to happen all the time. That's what I got to hope for.
I'm gonna try. I'm hopefully try to stop you this year.
Hey, you have that.
So Epic says Jeremy's the Santee Flathead Pro, and I'm like,
hey, I like that. Hey,
Jeremy is a hell of an angler. He really is.
When Epic says that stuff, man, you better take that shit to the bank.
But I will tell you,
I gotta keep
Epic is on some type of crazy level that it's just different. If you've ever watched him fish, it's just something to what that guy does. I know we all look up to what he does. He just does some crazy shit when he's fishing. And it's not luck. There's a reason why he catches all those damn 100-pound fish.
Experience.
And he does it in areas that don't have 100-pound fish. So that, to me, right there is the biggest, craziest part of it. Is he's not fishing waters that are known for catching a bunch of 100-pounders. So
I'm still learning, man. I'm still learning. Like I have certain areas of my lake that I like, but I've learned the last 2 years or so that I need to get out of these areas certain times of the year. And when I've been able to go ahead and pull the trigger and go and do that, it pays off. 9 out of 10, it usually does. And it's just sometimes you got to get. And I had a buddy tell me that a few years ago. He said, man, sometimes you just got to get out your comfort zone a little bit. I said, yeah, I know, man. But it's like, we catch some big fish. It's just not as consistent. You know what I'm saying? So
I think you're freaking way ahead of the curve just because your youth, you're at a level of most guys that are much older than you.
And I got the Solix.
I can tell you,
back.
I can tell you, Jeremy, within 10 years, man, you're going to be, if not one of the best ones down there on that Santee, bro. You know what you got going on down there.
Hoping.
What I miss?
By then,
I can tell you, brother, you know your stuff down there, brother. And like I said, within the next 10 years, man, if they don't know about you, they will. I promise you.
Right.
Right. There's one thing, Jeremy, is this catfishing thing. There is always more to learn. And no matter what level you think you're at, you will continue to learn. And it just,
and we're constantly talking about that. I'll talk to Jamie. I got a couple guys that we fish with, my brother. Hey man, what's going on? Like, I don't want to know it. I don't really know what I need to spot. Like, what do you think's been working? I'm honest with people. I'm pretty honest. Like, hey, we drifting, catching them, ledges, whatever. I'm not gonna tell you where we're at, but that's what I'm gonna tell you that. Hey, we're catching them, doing this, that, and the other. We're just a small group. Everybody else can go on. You know what I'm saying?
When we go out of town, you really, like I said, you got to study quite a bit. And myself and Jeremy, we could be studying for that tournament 5-6 hours that night, man, and it's crazy.
Epic said he wants to jump on, so I put the link down there. Epic, just click on the link, come on backstage, and we'll get you in here, buddy. But Jeremy, I'm super impressed with you as an angler. Your consistency is the number one thing. I think your ability to catch these big fish consistently is something that is hard. Is one of the hardest things for anglers. What's up, Epic? Welcome in, buddy.
What's up, Tim?
So it's pretty rare that I could get on YouTube these days. I have a swath of time, and then I come into Chris's channel, and y'all are talking about giant fish. And not only that, we got JTC. We got El Gato. Well, I don't know who else is there. I think I'll have to.
We got Ian Tipton, and we got Carolina Reel Screamers. So it's
you know what? All big fish experts. I was just tickled, and I'll just be
quiet. We know that won't last long, but you're right, welcome on the show. You are welcome on our show anytime, buddy. You are family, and I look up to you as an angler. I love you, man. So thanks for coming on.
Look at this. I'm all gray bearded up. I mean, I've aged more in the last year than and a lot of people do in 5. But
that's the distinguished look.
Well, I will have to say this. I'm tickled to be on this panel with a bunch of guys that I look up to, because you guys are flat out laying it down. You're working it. You're doing stuff. When I say that I'm waiting for the Giants to come to my area, years ago, I didn't know when the Giants came to my area. I didn't even know they were transitional. I didn't know that they do a certain thing at a time of year. And I would go in July, and it would be horrible, and I would spend a lot of money, and I would spend 6 or 7 days sleeping on islands, getting bit up by bugs, and blah blah blah. But now I do. But there again, that my area is a lot different than y'all's area, which YouTube kind of helped me realize, because I traveled throughout the country. I've probably fished 200 rivers. At times that I could, and some were major tributaries, and some were main rivers, and some were like 3 major tributaries away from where giants live. And I did not have the knowledge back in those days. So, I spent time and a considerable amount of money in my area chasing a dream that didn't exist. So now when a lot of people are saying, how come you and Sean aren't fishing in July? I'm like, well, I would have to actually travel like 12 hours because that's where they're at, and not 4, 12. I could go an hour west to the Mississippi after Flatheads, even though, I kind of know what's happened there, blah, blah, blah. But like Santee Cooper and where you fish in your lakes, and I'm not sure about the other two, but those are more closed systems,
Yeah.
which actually lead you to have to really, really define what's going on as far as the bite, as far as the weather, as far as the water level, and all that, because that makes the big difference. Now, I'm going to be quiet in a minute, but Jeremy like really impressed me when he used more than just catfish knowledge. And think about this. Now, I'm going to say it would be controversial if you put this out on total YouTube or total TikTok or anything like that. Controversial is that a lot of catfishermen are out there. They're beating the water. They've got all their stuff, but then there is intuition. There is when the common thread says do this, but then there's some of us that can use our instincts and say, this is absolutely not right. I've already been doing this for 2 hours. It's not working, and let's change our stars. So my hat's off to anybody who is out there. Jeremy's done it. I watched him do it. You've done it. I've watched you do it. I've watched a few other people do it. Say, okay, this is what happened last year on July 16th. And they keep doing the same thing. It's the progressive anglers that think, and they say, okay, I'm not happy with 20s and 30s and 40s. I'm not even happy with 50s. Let me think of what I've got to do to catch those 70s, 80s, and 90s, and sometimes 100s. So what are you going to do outside the box? And now, can I profess to know that? Yes, for my own experience on my own waters, but I can't profess to go to Chris's water or Jeremy's water and say, this is what I think I need to do when most of this works, and I need to almost do something totally opposite to shake some shit up and catch that 100-pounder. All I know is that most of the time I'm going to have an average style fishing trip at when my fish have transitioned. Like I put out that little comment on the Santee River. You can tell just by the looks of the Santee River that there is going to be a transitional population of big fish, but they're not going to stay there the whole time because it's just not enough to hold giants for a lot of the period of time. But if there's an influx, if the water's just right, they'll come into the river, they'll take advantage of the resource, but there's just not enough habitat to hold like super giants. Sure, 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s, blah blah blah, and the super giant thing has changed. 15 years ago, I used to do seminars, and I'd say, raise your hand if you think a super giant is 50 pounds or 40 pounds, and you'd have 50% of the fishing population, and they were all good. 50 pounds is huge. So you'd have like probably 95% of the population in the crowd.
Epic,
and it might have
I
been
think for the average angler, a 50-pounder is a lifetime fish.
Absolutely, but it's grown.
For a guy who fishes often, a
Yep.
50-pounder is the 1-year fish.
Yep.
For a guy who's been fishing his whole life, in the right season, a 50-pounder is almost, I'm not going to say an every trip fish, but it's an every, it becomes a regular thing. And then, what you consider to be a really big fish gets bigger as you progress as an angler. So, but it also, you only can catch what's in your water.
True that.
That's
if
right.
you don't have 100-pound fish, you can't catch 100. Like Eades up on the Ohio River. Well, hell, the pay lakers have decimated their waters. There's
So
not any, there are very few big fish, really big fish left. I mean, there's still some. You see some big ones coming out of there, but
yep. But if Ian's serious about it, he needs to fish the portion that dumps into the Mississippi, and I'll pretty much tell him, what's going on there. There is a certain percent of giants that comes out of the Mississippi River because it's super swift, and they will actually winter up in there. So after about Halloween, you could expect a certain amount, and they're not going to go up too far. You only go down to from the confluence up to about 1/3. So if he's anywhere close to that, if you're a true monster hunter, that's where I would focus.
I'll have to get a hold of you on that, Tim, and maybe pick your brain about that a little bit more. My home water is West Virginia and Gallipolis, Ohio.
You know what? West Virginia is not so bad because they actually have some sort of regulation, and all my buddies that fish the Ohio River is like that West Virginia stretch is way better than above that.
It is, but here's what happens. You have the guys who go out fishing with their fishing poles, catch the big fish, and then take them and sell them to the pay lake.
Well, absolutely. There's outlaws everywhere. I fished a river when I was young called the Kaskaskia, which it actually is made of the Okaw and the Kaskaskia River, in about mid-Illinois, and it was one of the best flathead rivers that there is in the state, besides the Rock, and this is before I really knew about the Rock, but I knew about the Kaskaskia. And I talked to a couple old guys that are like, I'm surprised any big flatheads make it all the way up to Shelbyville because there's dip nets. There's all kinds of, hoop nets all the way down past Vandalia, all the way down into Carbondale on that Kaskaskia River. But yet, I was able to catch some giants.
Yeah.
Now, remember one thing. Don't let the common language of people that give you excuses, and I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying, if I listened to every person that couldn't catch fish and gave me an excuse why they couldn't, I would have never caught the monsters that I would have. Honestly, because trust me, I'll guarantee wherever Chris is, Elgato, there's probably 100 people are like, there ain't no big fish in here. Matter of fact, I fish an area which is the highest upstream location which you could expect to catch a blue cat, and the average catfisherman doesn't even know that there's blue cats in there. They've never caught a fish over 20 pounds, and I'll pull off the river at an average, maybe it wasn't that great, and I caught a 45, I caught 2 36s, I may caught a 50, maybe I caught a 70, and I'll pull up to the dock. How'd you do? And they're wheeling in with a really nice boat, and I see what they've got on their lines. They've got 20-pound tests, they've got 3-ounce sinkers, and maybe they've got maybe some cheese bait worms, maybe they've got 3-aught circle hooks. They go, how'd you do? I'm like, well, we did okay. They're like, well, I said, you guys catch any blues? We catch blues all the time, 3 to 6 pounds. I'm like, well, probably not blues if you're doing that. And then I like maybe pull out my phone, and they go, oh, like this. Go, oh my God, what? You caught that here? I'm like, well, yeah, I catch it here all the time. So remember, the average guy that isn't on social media, doesn't follow maybe you or Chris or me or, Jeremy's tournament cats, they really have no idea. They don't. There's a giant microchasm that is from the guys that know kind of what they're doing to the guys that are just like kind of going out there fishing. And then there's the guys that really know what they're doing and really getting into it. Just like anything else. I mean, there's guys that, I have a furniture company. There's guys that build furniture in the garage, and all their buddies and their friends say that's the greatest thing in the world, but they could never sell it, if you get what I mean. I mean, it's a terrible fish. It was hacked together with a frickin' saw. But Everybody in their family loves it, but the average person won't. So, at the end of the day, guys that are consistently going out there on tough days and eking together a few good fish, guys that are fishing tough rivers such as the Ohio. I mean, there's a couple of guys I knew back in, the 1990s that were just whooping up on the tournament scene across the country because they grew up in mid-central Illinois where fishing's tough. Commercial fishing's everywhere, all that stuff. So it's kind of a feather in your cap if you can say, you know what, hey, these guys are really hammering, for the pay lakes and all this stuff. But you can say, okay, how many good fish do I catch? How are you close to them? Are you whatever? Or you can be like Jeremy and just go on a YouTube live on a tournament and just whoop up on some giant flatheads in the freaking river.
I call Jeremy Mr. Six.
I don't like it though. My partner's like, no, Jeremy, we got money. I said, let's just stick to let's just put this pole up here with the phone, bro.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to sound conceited, but when you're me and I watched Chris a couple times, when you could tell from the start that the bite was tough. It was morning, it was this, it was that. I could tell the bite was tough. He was burying his stuff, but I'll tell you, and most guys would have gave up by 11. He didn't. By noon, he's freaking waxing 40s, 50s, and high 50s, even when the conditions was tough. And you could see the progression in his mind, where he says, okay, I'm going to do what was good last time I went. I'm going to do what was good normally, and then I'm going to start throwing for the sky. So he started throwing shallow by 11 o'clock, which is absolutely counterintuitive by 11 o'clock, according to what his water is, where he's at, and whatever. But then he starts busting a couple fish, and then it was on. Then he got on that, but it only lasted about an hour. So when I say short bite window, that's the thing. All of us know that if we're going to be consistent, we at least can't rest on what we did yesterday or the day before or July 20th last year or the year before. We've got to go in. We've got to investigate. We got to move. And somebody said in the comments, he said, we're going to move those things a couple of times and while flathead fishing. I'm like, that is a major key to it. All right, I'll quit talking. I want to hear from you.
That's one thing I learned from you, Tim, is that moving that bait or maybe putting it a little further out of the reach because one thing about Tim, he knows where the fish is. He may put the bait a little bit out of the bite zone first, just to agitate, to get the fish agitated. Now, for the regular fishermen, the guys can't do that, Tim. They don't know where that fish is.
That's not it. I'm not trying to agitate them. I just know sub-position of fish is either neutral, negative, or active. So if I'm fishing cover, I know that if they're neutral or inactive, they're going to be tight to the cover. But if they're active, they'll be out in front of the cover in which they live. So I can't put it behind them because they'll never feel it. They'll never touch it. And they won't know it's there. There's no smell behind them. Yes, they have an elliptical zone as far as vibration, but even with blues, I have to keep it either off to the side or off to the front. But if I can't get it within, let's just say on an active day, 5 feet. 5 feet, it's got to be 2 foot to the side. It can't be a foot or so behind because they'll never know it. Or I can be 5 feet out to the front. But on most days, which is average, I got to have 2 to 3 foot, if not 12 inches on the horrible days, if not 6 inches. So that's why I try to say. I say, okay, if my head is the face of the catfish, I've got to have that thing on most days when they're not willing to move, which is most days. You get that crazy day where okay, so y'all been in tournaments, right?
Yes.
So every once in a while, you
we've
get
all
a
been in
tournament.
Oh yeah.
You get in
Yeah.
a tournament when the worst team is just kicking ass. The team that always ends last, and everybody's catching fish. Well, guess what happened? It was an active day. They're all
Mhm.
fairly active. Everybody's catching fish. So, who's the better angler? When everybody's catching fish, you just so happen to have better spots, or the guy that can actually catch fish when nobody's catching fish?
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
That's the better angler. Now, I don't really care if there's 1,000 anglers better than me. I'm happy with it. But
You're just
when
one to have success when you go. You're
that
like me. I don't
absolutely
like being a fail. I don't like failing when I fish.
no,
Uh, and if I like to pretty much eliminate that out of my fishing. Uh,
yeah,
You know, I think the longer you do it, you've been doing it for a little longer than me, Tim. It becomes a point
yep,
where you don't really lose too often. Now,
no,
some days you zig when you should have zagged.
yep,
Your bite window closes before
yep,
you got to them.
yep, yep,
You might finally find them, but they aren't biting, and you're
yep,
just like, "Damn it! I should have been here 2 hours ago," but you weren't. You lose that
and
day. But
and
over time, I think
and
you don't
trust me,
lose.
I'm going to make you all feel better. There are a certain few days that there's absolutely nothing you can do. Nothing.
Where
You
Tim
could
freezes.
literally give them their favorite bait on their face, on their bottom lip, and they will not eat it. There are a few days like that. And luckily for that, because that teaches us something new. You go, okay, is this a thing where I failed? Which 99% of the time, I'm going to put myself in that. I'm going to say, I failed to catch a fish over 60. I failed to catch a fish over 50 or 40 or 30 or 20. But when I fish day after day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I've done that. I've slept in hammocks. I've done the thing, and there is still at least one day that I am not far off a fish. They just will not bite. And if you're unlucky enough to have your one day a week that you can go fishing, and, and that's the case, you're like, oh my gosh. And so I start rethinking. I go,
Yeah.
did I forget what I know? Did I really just drink too many donkey drinks and just completely fail? I'm like, no, because next day it's a little bit more on, and the next day it's on fire. The next day it's a little off, and I do know the 3-day bite cycle when it comes to blues, and that is something that has made a big impact on me. Even looking back on my life when I didn't understand it, there is a 3-day bite cycle. And it doesn't matter if you're in Texas, it doesn't matter if you're all the way up to Keokuk on blues, or if you're out on the East Coast. Think about this. Y'all watch the guys on the Potomac. There's more
I know who they
blue,
are.
there's more blue cats per gallon of water in the Potomac than I've ever seen on any place in my life.
I'd like to see what some of these guys right here could do up there on that Potomac.
Well,
we might have to make a trip up there.
in my honest
you know what
opinion,
I'm saying, Tim?
Yeah.
You know,
in my honest opinion, the only thing you can really do on the Potomac is do the principles of like on the Mississippi, and you have to outsize your fish by the size of your bait. And I do that a
that's
lot.
what we do in Texas. I mean,
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
got a
but-
lot of small fish, so we try to
Yep.
we try to use bait that's big enough that's going to weed out fish under 20 pounds certain
Yeah.
time of the year. Otherwise, you're going to, instead of catching the good fish, you're going to catch the smaller one. Now,
You do.
guys always say you catch big ones on little baits. You can.
Yep.
But you're also going to catch a lot of little ones
Yep.
too. And if
Yep.
if you got a little one on the line, that that bait is out of the water for a certain amount of time, and you're losing time on catching the bigger one. Now, the bigger one will eat a smaller bait, but he's also loves a bigger bait because he doesn't want to work as hard. They're like they'll eat a tiny bait, but they also, it's like Ian. He don't want a little miniature burger. Am I right, Ian? When you go to buy a burger, are you buying a little mini burger?
No, sir, but I have found a lot of times in the wintertime when we're fishing for blue cats, we will use all different size of baits. Yeah. And they won't eat that big half of a shad. They want that little square rib cage. And
I think you guys that are a little further north,
that's the fact.
That is key for y'all to go smaller.
And sometimes it is. And Ian, I would agree with you that almost like any species, you can fish for giant crappies with 4-inch minnows. And some days that's going to be the ticket. You're going to eliminate all the small crappies. You're just going to catch huge crappies. Same thing with largemouth bass. Same thing with smallmouth bass. But like, I don't know if y'all saw my last video that I put out, because Sean and I went up with a couple friends of ours to Green Bay, and we were using I can say it here, but gobies, like they're 6-7 inches on a slip bobber with a circle hook on 20 foot of water off the pier. They wouldn't touch that. Although last time I was there at the same time, that was the key. So Sean catches one about 2.5 inches long, and it was bang, 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 and I mean studs. So there is what we call a slot bait. So a slot bait, especially in the colder months, Ian just brought that up. That especially in the wintertime, some of that stuff is too big. They will. I'm not saying big blues go through the water column and look at baits and go, hey, that's my size. Bass may, crappie may, bluegill may, all those other sight fishing type stuff. But when big blues come up on a big bait, if they're and this is what I call it if their mantra's big, if they're seething with aggression, there's almost no bait too big, because we've all caught blues with 2-foot fish in their stomachs. Am I not right?
You're right.
Am I not right?
I've had one throw up a damn cormorant that was
It
was like a 10-pound cormorant. I'm like, dang.
There you go.
It was only a 40-pound fish. The cormorant was a quarter of his weight.
But is that the norm? Absolutely
not. The norm.
I
would say most of the fish that get thrown up, for a big, let's just call a big fish over 40. So, a 40-pound fish is eating about a 5-inch bait. As they get to 50, it moves to about a 6 or 7-inch bait. I think now, if you're wanting to target 50s, for me, I'm going to use what I see them throwing up, which is, a fish that's about 7-8 inches. I'm going to use a chunk that big. So the fish that I'm using, I cut the fins off. And by the time I trim it all up, it's about the size of my hand. Now, but I do throw bigger ones.
Chris, you can stop all that effort, by the way.
Yeah, I don't have to trim all that stuff.
You don't have to. That's our human thing that we need to present a bait that's really, they don't really care. When they're like this, when they're seething with aggression, it doesn't matter. Literally, you could have a thing of baling wire hanging off of your bait fish and they would still eat it.
I feel like I removed that. Like you said, it's all personal deal. I feel like they might grab that tail and just not grab the rest of it. So
yeah, and you're absolutely right. So if somebody
I trim that tail off, which leaves about that much behind where I stick my stinger hook, behind the dorsal fin. And so I feel like a decent sized blue cat, when he comes up for an injury bite, he's getting up on that tail and trying to break this. I'm trying to think like the damn blue cat. He's trying to come up and break that fish's spine, right? And injure.
So pause a second. I love that terminology. And I had thought about it in the past, how to describe that. But when you talk injury bite, That is something, and I'll give Chris right here credit, because if anybody else starts talking about injury bite or like a death blow, a death bite, catfish, especially blues and channel cats, do that. Flatheads don't need to. They don't do death bites or injury bites. But that right there should actually carry through into the next decade as far as how to describe what they're doing on live baits. Because remember this, fellas, and everybody else in chat, there's not that much dead bait in the river.
Right.
They're all eating live bait.
Yes.
It's just blues and channel cats aren't as good as flatheads at eating live bait. They are all eating live bait, and I believe that. I've watched it with my own eyes. They have a devastating initial crunch, which you called it, a debilitating
Injury bite. Injury bite.
Injury bite. They're causing an injury. They're picking it up later. Sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. But they will inhale that bait and they will crush, like you said, the spine, the head, the whatever. But they will injure that live bait and then come back and eat it. And trust me, it happens.
Yeah, so I learned about that.
Continue what you were saying, but that was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant.
I learned about the injury bite by using whole baits.
Yeah.
And when I would get one, before I would use the stinger rig, I would use a big bait, and a big giant fish would crush it.
Yes.
But he would not take the whole bait down, and I would crank down. I would reel my bait in, and the eyeballs would be just blown out of the freaking fish head. So I know it was a giant, powerful fish, and strong enough to hit that thing to just blow its eyeballs out. So I'm like, hell, I'm gonna try to use this saltwater stinger hook. And this is probably, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, and it works for the injury bite. So guys are like, yeah, that works for the smaller fish. I'm like, that ain't why I'm putting them on there. It's not for a smaller fish to eat the back side of the bait. It's for the bigger fish that comes up and does an injury bite, who's trying to injure that fish before he eats it while it's fully alive. He just wants to mess it up good and then go kick back and look at it for maybe 10 seconds, maybe, I don't know how long, but it's definitely an injury bite.
Little fish hang on to them for a while and they carry them around, but big fish don't. Big fish do the hit and spit. And I know this because I've watched it with my own two eyes. I've felt it in the rod, whatever. But I envision a day when a 13-aught hook like this, I don't know if you guys can see that, a 13-aught hook. I just so happened on my porch, just had
Uh-oh.
I believe we just lost him, brother.
We're losing you, Epic.
The side. I
froze up, buddy.
I haven't one yet.
So Epic's talking about a 13-aught hook. I like that 13 too. 12, 13 for catching fish that are over 40 pounds. I think it's pretty important. Not necessary, but that 80 we caught was on an 8-aught. So what the hell do I know? But I know
one thing back to bait sizes. We have a pretty good skipjack hatch in the summer. And once those skipjacks get beyond fingerling and get to 6 to 8 inches, that's what the fish want more. I mean, you'll catch some big ones here and there, but when you catch those smaller skipjacks and try to use them with the bigger ones, they'll always seem to hit those smaller skipjacks.
I used to think that, Ian, back in the day, I would try to match the hatch. Because is everybody hearing me? I know I went kind of south on my signal. I just want to make sure everybody hearing me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. So I used to match the hatch a lot because we do have the same phenomenon here on the Mississippi. We have the small skipjacks, we get the shad, we get the smaller bait fish, blah blah blah. But I'm telling you, I was a big proponent of that and I just couldn't imagine why I wasn't catching more huge fish.
I think
Because
matching that hatch is what you're going to do to catch the adolescent fish.
yes, and I'm not putting anybody down.
Well, in the experience that I was using, we're catching big skipjacks and those smaller ones and using them side by side, and they're not hardly touching the big ones. Every once in a while, they're wanting to eat those smaller ones.
I think Ian, try this, buddy. Don't go all big. Go big on some of them, because there's not a lot of those apex fish out there. There's way more smaller ones. So if you're catching a bunch on that size, it's because there's a bunch more that are that size. But if you come across
one size baits, we're dragging 10, 8 to 10 rods. We've got half big baits on and half of those smaller skipjacks, and we're not catching hardly any fish on those bigger skipjacks. Is what I'm saying,
Ian.
We're catching. Go ahead.
Ian.
Hey,
Ian,
Chris,
I cannot drag. I cannot drag in the Mississippi River and catch fish over 50 pounds. I'm telling you, the big fish take some time. You can drag, you can pull, because I have so many baits. I have literally hundreds and thousands of baits in big fish water. I cannot, for the life of me, and I have tried it in the interest of science, in the interest of fortitude, in the interest of whatever, to try to get giant fish to either hit either small baits, medium baits, or big baits in the fashion of dragging or bumping. And it does not. I can mark one fish, put it right in his face, and I still have to let him be accustomed to it for at least 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. 8 minutes.
So 10, when you're dragging, it's only in front of their face for about a second.
Right. It's reaction. And maybe I'm in a.
You have to find a fish that's looking for an ambush. I think a bigger fish sometimes maybe, they're more weary.
They don't need an ambush.
When
they're waiting. Come through, they will eat what they want to eat when they get aggressive. When they're non-aggressive, you got to put it close to them, like within a foot or 2, 3 foot, but it still takes 5, 6, 7 minutes. And I'm talking about fish over 70, which I've caught literally multiple hundreds of 70s. Several hundreds in the 80s and minimal hundreds in the 90s and 10 fish over 100. But on every single occasion, whether we're talking about flatheads or we're talking about blues, not almost every single time, you could pretty much throw out the 1% that I've actually got one to go, drop it in front of his face within 3 minutes. That's a rare thing. I can literally, and I don't want to make myself sound like I have some sort of special freaking superhero thing, but because I don't. I've just practiced it long enough. I can literally angle on a fish and be very confident that I may have to have 100 foot of anchor rope out in current that angles, and I know pretty much where that fish is according to how I marked them on the graph, what the topography is, and blah, blah, blah. That is one thing I've worked on for like 40 years. I'm very comfortable knowing that when I throw a fish, matter of fact, I have a better chance that a flathead is going to bite a well-placed bait within 5 minutes, 5 minutes and under, than I do a blue. For some reason, blues, when they're holding, they're in some sort of suspended bullshit animation unless they're moving. And then it's almost impossible when they're moving to put it right in front of their face. Right. They're still going to have to like zone in on it. If I could teach all of you guys and everybody at home one thing about gigantic blues, is that when they're holding, they're off. And you have to literally turn the switch on. And it doesn't, if it's flying past their face, it's going to fly past their face. If you get it within their smell zone and their orient zone, it's going to take some time before they wake up. And I'm not saying they're sleeping with their eyes closed, but they kind of are. And this is one of the things I've learned about giants that a lot of people don't know. And if everybody knew that about giants, they would do better. They would catch more 100-pound fish than they've ever dreamed of. Or 60-pound fish. If that's the biggest fish they have in their water, they would catch more 60-pound fish than trying to like hop, skip, and jump. Now, I do believe, because I was actually one of the pioneers of move, move, move. Put your baits in front of as many fish as you can. Move, move, move. But now I would literally rewrite those articles and those television shows and say, okay, depends on what you want to do. If you want to catch more and bigger fish in a short amount of time, yes, you're going to have to move, move, move. But once you locate fish that you're confident that they're giants, if they're, 4 foot, 5 foot fish, from the top of their dorsal fin to the bottom of their belly is like 24 inches, well, it's time to put some time in. You may not get them to bite. They may sit there for another 3 hours, or they may get up and move to the left or to the right or down. But most of the time, when I catch a giant, I don't wait any longer than probably, it's not that I don't wait, but I don't catch super giants more than 20 minutes past an anchor or less than 10 minutes past an anchor. But as long as I have, if I'm terrible, if I don't know how I'm going to do it, as long as I go above a giant fish, I've got a better shot at trying to target him if I'm going to miss him by a tail. If he's 4 foot long and if I put the bait like more by his tail or a little bit down, the odds are I am not going to catch that fish. I'd be better off putting it 4 foot in front of that fish, but not 10.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean.
So the bigger the fish, the shorter the bite window.
Yes.
The less they feed.
Yes.
When they do feed, they want it to be easy.
Yes. You're 3 for 3, Chris. 3 for 3. Now keep going. Keep going.
And it's all about the right bait and the right presentation. And then because I'll be honest, I fish around a ton of guys that don't do well, and I hammer them, and they're like, I don't understand what is different. We had the same bait. We're in the same water, similar rig.
Chris, I'm going to give Ian the benefit of the doubt here. It's actually better to use smaller baits if you are really good at bait placement, because the bigger the bait, the more failure rate you have.
Definitely.
If Ian is throwing small baits accurately, then he's on it, because it really doesn't matter whether your bait's an inch long or 5 inches long. It's actually better to have the small ones if you can predict the distance and that there's not other smaller fish being more active, just swooping in front of a giant and like eating the bait and wasting your time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I love this stuff. And you know what? It was hard to talk like this 20 years ago, because a lot of people are like, what are you talking about?
Hey, Tim, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
In the summertime, our river slows down substantially, and we just don't hardly catch blues on anchor when that happens at all in the summer.
Because they spread out, because they have it's more like fishing the Potomac, where the Potomac is fairly slow. The James River is the same thing. Everybody talks about the current on the James River. I'm like, oh my gosh, the high tide on the James is probably pretty much nothing compared to regular current on the Mississippi. Now the Mississippi will lose current too. So what happens is, when they shut one dam down and they don't open the other one, it just sort of slowly stacks up, and it's really slow. So there's two things that I do. I go for the fastest current I can find, or the deepest water I can find. Because remember one thing, blues are still creatures of, they're basically like dinosaurs. They're pretty much unchanged for about 3 million years. So it's the fight or flight. When the water goes slack, okay, on the beginning of the slack, they find deeper water because if they're up shallow and the water goes slack, they got to get off that, otherwise they'll be trapped. It's the fight or flight. So I'll either go to the deepest holes, but that's tough because they've already done their fight or flight thing. And I've got to hope that there's an active fish that's big enough to trip my trigger. Otherwise, I'm going to catch a whole bunch of dinks, meaning, and I'm sorry to say it, 40s and under. And I am just not really happy with that. I'm sorry, but I'm just not. I'm jaded. I'm ruined. I'm old, and I've been doing it a long time. So
we're not blessed with big fish like that in our area. The state record's only 68 pounds. You
just got to hit it at the right time. Like Chris said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just waiting because I could have been fishing my areas for 30s and 40s this whole time. And an occasional big fish. There's guys catching an occasional big fish, but you gotta think, how many trips am I going to do down there? I've already done it. I already know. I started fishing down there in April, June, July, April, May, June, July, October, blah, blah, blah. My best window shot is August because one thing I learned about blues, which was counterintuitive. I was convinced at some point, probably 15, 20 years ago, that blues are going to migrate when that water gets high. They're going to come up like flatheads and channel cats do. They don't. That's the one counterintuitive. Well, there's several counterintuitive things, but that's one of the major ones. Blues do not migrate upstream until the water is stable and not high. I wouldn't say low, even though they do work their way up from Memphis and from Louisiana. They start moving up all the way up to here. And you got to realize Memphis to where I fish blues is several hundred miles. Okay. Also, the Missouri fish winter in Missouri, and they stay up there almost all year until late July, and they start filtering down. So my area becomes, I wouldn't say a mecca, because I can go 3 days and not mark a fish over 4 foot. I can literally go there and it looks like the surface of the moon. You would think that where I fish right there at St. Louis area is like the mecca of the world, because at times they have the tournament down there and everybody kills them. Well, at just the right point in time of their migration, that works. But most of the time it doesn't. And I could count on both hands in 30 years that I've went in July. Well, I could count on one hand both times, all the times I went in July that it was worthy of me traveling 4 hours, staying overnight in a hotel, getting all the donkey baits, doing all the stuff, blah, 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 that it was actually worth it. Out of all the times I went in July, all the times I went in June, it's not really until August that I can literally, I can't do it at will, but at least I can move. I can look at 15 miles of river and mark at least 4 fish over 4 foot. Now, sometimes I can go there if I hit it just right, and I'll mark 30 fish over 4 foot and a couple over 5 foot. So, I mean, last year we caught, I don't know, a couple over 90, maybe 5 or 6 over 80, and several 70s, and sometimes on the same anchor. That's a rare year, but you got to watch how that water's going, which is different than a lake. But the Ohio is also slow like a lake, but this is a fast running river. They can be anywhere they want. So I have to intercept them according to where they're at, what the time of year is, what the migration patterns are, and all that. Now, I wouldn't say, yeah.
Hey, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
As far as rising and dropping river conditions, I mean, everybody knows it's slow rise is decent, but what is your favorite time to fish? Do you like to fish that slow rise, the fast rise, or after it's dropped in the level off. I like that level off period after it's dropped.
Stable for 3 to 5 days. Give me
Yeah,
stable low, give me stable medium, give me stable high. I don't care.
yeah.
So,
yeah.
That goes pretty much for lake fishing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, consistency.
Yep.
I tell guys like, man, it's just no wind. I'm like, yeah, but it's 3 days of no wind. Fish ain't gonna start for 3 days. Guys like, oh man, it's the north front. I'm like, yeah, but it's the third day of the north front. It's hammer time.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter, but if you can have consistent, you know, I think it's probably the same for the river.
Hey, Chris, when I get old, I'm gonna actually interview you in my book that I'm gonna write.
All right. Let's do it.
I'm still 20 years from getting old, so hopefully I live that long so I can actually write that book.
You're still in your prime. You're still in your prime, Tim. Your fishing prime.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. My prime, I could stay up for 4 days in a row and pretty much not go home for a month. Now I want to go home. So
hey Tim, you got your next trip planned yet?
I do. Heroes and I are going to go down to Donkey Waters and slap some gigantic baits in the front of humongous fish and see what happens. I mean, that's how we plan trips.
What general area will you be fishing, and what's your donkey bait of choice?
Okay, so my newest donkey bait is a 3-foot eel. So the thing's as big around, dude. The thing is as big around as a softball, and I'm gonna hack the head off that thing, and then about 4 inches later, I'm gonna hack it off again, and we're gonna throw that in front of some big things. Now, I don't know if we'll do that on the first thing. I'm not gonna kill that eel unless I mark the right shit. I want to mark 5-foot fish if I'm gonna kill that big ass eel. Otherwise, it's going to live really nice in my awesome chilled bait tank out in the garage.
I love that eel.
I'll cut 24-inch carp in half before I cut that eel up. But it's just one of those things where we're going to see what the fish tells me to do, because I'm going to know within a couple of hours. And if you guys watch my lives, pretty much you can almost guarantee by the time we hit that button, we've been on the water for 3 hours, and we haven't put a single bait.
Go time.
It's going to be go time when I decipher what I need to do and where I need to go. And that's the thing. And I've told people this online, but I usually will look at 15 miles of river, and I will rate the spots 1 through 10. The first spot, I might say it's a 10 because that's the only spot I've been to. Second spot might go to number 1 because I saw more big fish in resting location, but not like really bad. Sometimes I'll move into a basin area that may be deep, but they'll all be like, just straight backed. And I'll be like, well, we're going to have to hit that at the right place. But generally, for me to do a 10, they've got to be in feeding mode position based on what I see, located in donkey water type epic areas. And then I'm going to make a choice from there, because I've been to 15, 20, 25 spots, and it all looks pretty good, but I may mark one fish above the rest. So that's going to move to number 1, of course. And sometimes it fails because number 1 fish fed an hour ago and it's already done. But I'm still going to take the risk of throwing baits into that zone, especially if it has a drop associated with it, especially if it has a feeding zone up above it and they're just sitting maybe on a rise. Maybe I'm in 45 foot of water and it's got a back rise and they're all sitting on the back rise. If they're sitting on the back rise at the bottom of it, they're just biding their time. If they're sitting higher up on it, they're feeding. If they're faced away from the current because it's got reverse current, nose into it, it's on, like right then. Or if I go above and the current is washing over to, say, like a wing dike, which I know you guys don't fish wing dikes, but it's basically like a shallow spot in the river and then it drops almost straight down, blah, blah, blah. If I can find them like, let's just say it's 50 foot of water or 30 foot of water, and I find them at 15 foot of water, nose into that drop, they're feeding. And I'm like, well, we got to get the baits on them right now. Look at that. I'm giving myself goosebumps because I'm just like all fired up about
it. Chris, I'm going to have to soon go. My charger's messed up. I'm down to 2%.
All right, buddy. Man, we've had a great show. Ian, appreciate you coming on, man. Had a great time talking with you. Appreciate you, sharing everything with us. Tim, it's always a pleasure.
Chris, I'm telling you, I got on here because there was so many guys out there. You can tell by the way they talk. They want to catch more and bigger fish. And I'm always excited to kind of, get a couple ideas going, because you don't have to do what I'm doing. Everybody fishes different situations, but I get fired up just thinking about, because I've been in every one of you guys' shoes. Every one. Like, why am I not? Still couldn't catch them because there was principles that I didn't understand, and it wasn't because I was following anybody. Or I was listening to the bait shop guy. Of course I did. I threw big globs of freaking on treble hooks, big globs of whatever, and I bought minnows from them and worms and this and I tried my best. But now. Thank goodness we got social media, that guys that are doing it, you can tell. You go on TikTok and there's guys showing you what you need to know. And sometimes you're just in waters where, like you said, expecting giants where they don't exist. Some of these rivers are tiny rivers, but they lead into big lakes. So like Cody Kennedy, great fisherman, but he's got the Cape Fear. He's, one of the, there's giant fish, the Oklahoma reservoirs that have the little red river going through them. You see all the noodlers catching like 70-pound flatheads. Well, 75-pound flatheads do not exist in tiny little rivers like that. They're coming from the big lakes. Same thing, like whatever. But until you realize your topography and habitat, you can't really choose where you're going. You're just kind of doing a shot in the dark. But the Ohio, that's what I'm saying, up above that last pool, I have a very good notion that I could go at the right times of year and bust some true monsters in the Ohio, although they would be Mississippi River fish, because I've been able to do it on major tributaries going into the Mississippi for probably 25 years. Blah, blah, blah. There's other situations. Look at Chris. He's fishing impoundments down there. Holy moly. And he's catching 50s and 60s. And you know what? I don't complain about 50s and 60s. I complain about 40s because they just sort of paddle tail. They're kind of roly-poly.
Tim, I tell you what, man, I learned so much from you, brother. Every time you've come up, man, this has been...
Yeah, and you know what? I love every bit of it, because if I can help you and Chris and whoever else catch big fish, I don't ever pat myself on the back. I just say like this. I'm like, you know what? These guys earn it. They go out there, and if somebody will lend them a helping hand, that's huge, because there was nobody back in the day. There was guys catching big fish, but they'd tell you, use some bubble gum and a freaking treble hook. They would, and go to the nearest creek. They would tell you the wrong thing every day. Use a bunch. Catch what you need to do is you need to catch a sparrow or two, and you need to keep that sparrow alive. And then you need to put like an Aberdeen whatever.
I remember back in the day when I first started back in the '80s, an old man told me, "You want to catch the biggest catfish? It's wrong to use them, but you get baby kittens, freshborn baby kittens." And I was like, "Man, I'm not going to do that."
Yep.
I'm not going to do that. And then there was the old wives' tale about the silver bridge that fell in our area, and the Volkswagen-sized catfish, and the old man that went down there every year with a deep sea fishing rig and a whole chicken catching them big giant,
You know what? I don't disagree with that whole chicken a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know big fish like water birds because I've had one throw up a giant one on my deck. So,
and I'm not so sure I won't be throwing Cornish game hens at some point. Don't be surprised.
There you go.
Because if I get in a
they're similar to a baby duck, and I think
and
like baby ducks.
but if I get in a situation where there's too many 20s and 30s and a very few 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100s, I'm going to have to outsize a 30, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, Tim, I definitely want to get a hold of you and pick your brain about that Mississippi River down there where it meets the Ohio.
Anytime, brother. Anytime.
Does Chris have your number?
Yep, Chris
I got his number.
Yep.
Okay. I'll shoot you a text, Tim.
All right, brother.
I appreciate it. Nice talking to you, buddy.
Hey, I enjoyed it. And I'm telling you, you guys got me fired up while I was watching this thing, and I'm like, oh man, I got to join this conversation because there is certain principles, and it's not much. So an equation could be 10 freaking inches long on the chalkboard. You're just missing that one piece of the pie, that one little outlook. Because I mean, Chris said 3 of them tonight that you don't hear from catfishermen very much. 3 of them. I'm like, yep. And there's only like 2 more because it's not that complex. There's only 2 more. The last one, and I'll leave you guys with this one. It's literally how much. What was that guy's name on Quint? Captain Quint. It's just literally how much of a Captain Quint you really want to be. And trust me, you got fishing buddies. May hate you for it. And trust me, I have had guys that needed to travel 3 hours home, and I kept them till almost daylight many times. I don't do it anymore. But some of them won't fish. They're like, that guy's freaking crazy. He's nuts. How far are you willing to go? I'm willing to go far as it goes. So how far are you on that equation? That's the Q on the end. The A plus B minus Z divided by 72 equals Q, the end of the question.
Tim, I'm willing to fly up there and get on your boat. So.
Let's go. All right. You better plan about 3 days because I'm not accepting a terrible bite.
Oh,
if you fly in on about Friday,
if I'm coming, we're coming to catch something giant.
Massive.
Massive.
Well, yeah. So. If I ever get on Tim's boat, I'm not going to cry about going home because I will be home. That'll be home enough.
Well, just remember, y'all. Chris said it, and this thing is taped because at the end of the day, he's going to be like, can we go home? No, I don't think he will.
No, Tim. The only thing that brings me home is my wife, and she'll be in Texas. So,
well,
when I fish with my buddies, they're like, "Damn, you just fucking don't stop until you have success." I'm like, I'm not coming home. I'm not coming home a loser. So
tell your wife, even if the house is on fire, you're not coming home. All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much,
buddy. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Ian,
love y'all.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, good seeing you, brother.
Everybody be safe. Good luck out there.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much,
guys. Azul out.